You have fire in your gut? Okay, we're here for a reason, to win games. So if you didn't have that fire in your gut, you better light the fire pretty fast.
And welcome in to another episode of the Shaving Points podcast. For this segment here, we're going to be joined by the spreadsheet king himself, Alex Katson, to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Alex, how are you doing this fine evening?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come talk Chargers with us. And we'll see if Jay is able to join us or not at some point throughout the show. But I know that he is dying to ask you about Justin Herbert, because last year we got stormed by Chargers fans for some criticism from Jay of Justin Herbert that I've always been kind of on the fence on, but Jay's much more of a feel it in your gut and ride it kind of guy. And
Sure.
he's always had some questions about just how good is Justin Herbert. And I sent him this article that I found the other day over at Wide Left. Is it wideleft.com?
Wideleft.football.
Football. That's right. Okay. I knew it was something a little different. Written by you, that I thought did about as good a job summarizing Justin Herbert's career to this point and some of the questions around him. But Alex, where can people find this article, find other work that you do around the Chargers and the NFL? And can you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on that article going into writing it?
Yeah, so that article is on wideleft.football, which is Wide Left, the Substack newsletter that I recently became an executive of. It's owned by Arif Hassan, who's a fantastic former Vikings reporter for The Athletic, and now sort of writes about more so the business of football as it is. He's written about the Draft Network and about PFF and all that sorts of stuff. We're expanding that footprint this year with a bunch of new writers to kind of expand the content available on there. It is subscription based, but we really pride ourselves on focusing on long form stuff in an era where everything is increasingly shorter and shorter form. We really pride ourselves on doing like sort of feature length stuff. So I promise you it will be worth it. We usually have 2 or 3 articles come out a week. If you are just looking for Chargers stuff all the time, I also write for Chargers Wire, which is the USA Today sports media site for the LA Chargers. I do a draft show on Guilty as Charged, which is a Chargers podcast hosted by my friends Steven and Tyler. And I'm all over the place. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. If you like the draft, I'm doing the spreadsheet stuff that Quentin mentioned. That's over on my Patreon. I'm all over the place. But yeah, Justin Herbert, I think, had a deceptively good season last season. And I think that for a lot of people, it is deceptive because the playoff game left a really sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, right? Like it's one of the worst games that he's ever played as a pro. And so the pessimism coming into this season, I completely understand, right? Like he had a bad playoff game against the Texans. Greg Roman is still his offensive coordinator, and I think a lot of people around the media landscape don't feel very strongly about Greg Roman as a positive force in an offensive room. The weapons are kind of hit or miss, as we'll get into in a little bit here. But really, when you look at Herbert's body of work to this point, by pretty much every stable metric that we have, whether that's yards per attempt or turnover worthy play rate or anything that you can throw at it, right? Herbert had his second best season of his career last season, second only to the 2021 season when he was like an offensive player of the year candidate in his second year in the league. And so while the volume is not the same as it was with prior to this point, up until his career here, last year, the volume was not where it was. He threw less than 30 times more times than he had in his entire career up to that point just last season. The efficiency is still very much there, and they're trying to take things off of his plate, not because he can't handle having that much on his plate, but because the Chargers to this point have put so much on Justin Herbert's plate to this point in his career, whether it's failures along the offensive line or failures to develop weapons or failures of scheme, with the offensive coordinator, whatever it is. Greg Roman is his 3rd offensive coordinator that he's had in the NFL. 4th offensive coordinator, actually, that he's had in the NFL coming into year 6 here. And so there's a lot of change that's been around Justin Herbert his entire career, and they're trying to take a little bit off of his plate just so that like the offense does not rely solely around like Justin Herbert has to bail us out on every single play.
Now, when you're talking about that volume, right, and that taking stuff off his plate because he's had to do so much for the offense in his career, do you think? And this might be somewhat of a weird question, but do you think that being able to excel with that type of volume is a trait that needs to be practiced, or do you think it's more of a switch that you can just kind of flip when you need it?
I think that with any quarterback, the more you increase the volume of plays that you're asking them to execute, the more likely it is that you are going to run into trouble. And with Herbert specifically, this has been a huge issue just in terms of injuries, right? Like Herbert has never suffered a major injury in his career. He's only ever missed 4 games, and that was when he broke his finger 2 years ago when Brandon Staley got fired. The first game after that was the game that they lost 63-21 on Thursday Night Football, and Brandon Staley got fired the next day. But he's only ever missed those 4 games in his career. But every year he'll pick up a minor injury that clearly hampers him throughout the season. Like last year, it was the ankle injury that he had for basically the entire first half of the year. And as you increase the volume that you're asking of him, there's more opportunities to get hit, especially with the offensive line that the Chargers have put in front of him to date. There are more opportunities for, a turnover worthy play, right? Where Herbert is consistently amongst the top 5 quarterbacks in the league in limiting turnover worthy plays. It's usually around 1.22%. But with more volume, if that rate stays the same, you're increasing the number of plays that are going to be turnover worthy, right? Like if you throw it 100 times and 2 out of every 100 are going to be turnover worthy plays, if you throw it 100 times, 2 of those are going to be turnovers. If you only throw it 50 times, only 1 of those is going to be a turnover. And in the NFL, margins like that are the difference between winning and losing games. And so I think that like in terms of, whether or not the volume is something that you can practice or not, I think it really is just sort of like statistically, the laws of statistics dictate that like the more and more that you throw the ball, the more and more that you put all of your eggs into one basket, so to speak, the more trouble you are going to run into because that player is going to get worn down. That player is going to get injured. That player is going to make mistakes that they make at very marginal rates more frequently volume wise because you're asking them to execute more plays volume wise.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, and that it's an interesting. I feel like it's not that often in the NFL you see a team turn down the dial on a quarterback's volume who's proven they can do it, right? And with Herbert, I love that you bring up the injury things because I feel like in my years of tracking him and doing this series where I'm like every offseason I'll go look at his numbers, look at his stats, look at why his stats might have been what they were. It's like, oh well, he got hurt this week. He wasn't the same guy for the next 5 weeks, and then it seems like he started to like come back from it. And that's a very valid thing throughout his career to this point. And last year he stayed, correct me if I'm wrong, but he stayed relatively healthy, I believe.
Yeah, for the most part, there was the ankle sprain at the beginning of the year. I think it was in like week 2 or 3 that then he was dealing with basically for the entire first half of the season. Chargers had a super early bye last year, so he didn't really get a chance to recover from it as much. And I think that really limited, some of the stuff that this new scheme and these new coaches really wanted to leverage in terms of Herbert's talent, right? Because like Greg Roman is known as the Lamar Jackson coordinator, for better or for worse, right? Like Lamar Jackson won an MVP with Greg Roman as offensive coordinator. Once Greg Roman left, everyone was kind of like, oh, Greg Roman was the guy holding Lamar back. But like, I think there was a very obvious vision when the Chargers hired Greg Roman that they wanted to leverage Herbert's ability as a runner a little bit more and get a little bit more multiple in the run game specifically. And you see that in the way that they move this offseason to change up the running back position as well. But with Herbert playing on a sprained ankle for, half of the season, basically this season, they couldn't really leverage that as much as they wanted to. And so I think that sort of limited some of the things that they wanted to do offensively. And then you throw in J.K. Dobbins gets injured right when Herbert starts to get healthy again. And then the run game from the running back perspective doesn't really get going the way that they want it to. And there's just a lot of things that like I don't think that they got to do that they were wanting to do last season. And that's kind of been a theme throughout Herbert's career is that like he never gets injured enough that he can't play, or very rarely, right? Like I said, he's only ever missed the 4 games. But you look at the list of his injuries and, like there's 1 or 2 every season. He's missed part of the off season basically every season with, like last year it was with a plantar fascia issue. The year before that it was a different broken finger. Like, he's broken 2 fingers, he's had plantar fascia, he sprained his ankle like 3 times at this point. Like it's all this minor stuff, but it stops the Chargers from being able to do everything that they want to do. And when Justin Herbert is such a focal point of your offense, as any quarterback in any offense is, but especially for this Chargers team that hasn't had a great offensive line in front of him, hasn't had great weapons around him, asking him to go out there at 60, 70% and execute a full playbook to a bunch of guys that can't elevate the talent around them, like it's just not a winning formula. And so I think like this season there's a lot of optimism because Herbert is fully participating in the offseason program. The weapons look improved on paper, and so there should be a lot more that this Chargers offense is able to do. And if they don't, then that's where you start to have the conversation of, okay, is this Greg Roman's shortcomings that we saw in Baltimore? Is this a shortcoming of Justin Herbert himself? Did the weapons not live up to expectations? Like where is the next pain point, right? And you kind of just continue iterating from there.
Now, so one of the more kind of frequent positives and negatives in a way that I see talked about with Herbert is how much he limits the negative moments, but also that comes with almost a cost of like the way I've seen it termed is mostly as like robotic kind of play, or the, too quickly to get to the check down, too quickly to avoid a risky moment that, some other great quarterbacks might turn into something great, where he might be a little too quick to say, I'm going to take the safe route here. Is there any situation, any moment, any comfort zone that you've ever seen from Herbert where he seems more willing to kind of take those risks, or more willing to any moments that might be different than that critique you hear?
Yeah, I think for sure this past season, the past 2 seasons really, Herbert's turnover worthy play rate has increased a little bit. Like the first 4 years that he was in the league, he was the number 1 quarterback in turnover worthy play rate at like 1.1, 1.2% every single year.
Mhm.
And it was like, this guy does not put the ball in danger. He's not going to throw interceptions. He's not doing anything to risk giving the ball to the other team. In the last 2 seasons, you've seen that creep up to closer to like 2, 3% as he does take a few more risks and kind of pushes the envelope a little bit more. And I think when he's been fully healthy, I think you saw it sort of down the stretch last season where he was a little bit more comfortable getting out of the pocket and making throws on the run and trusting that arm that he has where we know that he can make those throws. But it's been a work in progress for sure. And like the article that you referenced on Wide Left, right? Like I write about how being elite as a quarterback, to me, there's 3 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. There's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. You can put them in any order you want. I don't care. Those are 3 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And what makes them so head and shoulders above the rest of the league is their ability to create magic out of a broken play, right? Like you can defend a play perfectly. The play can be completely screwed up from the line of scrimmage because someone makes a mistake. And you still know as a defense that you are not out of the weeds, right? Because like they are going to pull something out of their hat and make a play, right? And Herbert is not able to do that as consistently as those 3 guys are at this juncture. And I think a lot of that has to do with willingness. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Where Greg Roman is his 4th offensive coordinator in 5 seasons, going into season 6 here, right? And he had 3 offensive coordinators at Oregon in college. And so really it's his 7th offensive coordinator in the last decade, basically. And so he's never really had the comfort level of, okay, I know this offense, in and out, backwards and forwards. I can start to blur the lines a little bit and know that like, I have the chemistry with this guy to, make something out of nothing, right? The way that Mahomes does with Travis Kelce so frequently, as an example, right? And like the Chargers haven't really had that guy because they've also been overhauling all of their, the receiver position, the tight end position since Herbert got here, right? And so for a few years that was Keenan Allen, and now Keenan Allen is gone as of last season, right? And so now it's about building that rapport with Lad McConkey. as the new de facto wide receiver one for the Chargers, and seeing if you can develop that sort of chemistry of like, okay, like I'm going to get out of the pocket and I know that he's going to find a way to get open because we've repped it a million times, right? When you have to install a new offense every season, you can't rep situations like that as frequently because you have to install the actual plays. And so there's a forcing function there, right? Where it's just like there's a limitation in terms of what you can do outside of the structure of the offense when the team doesn't know the structure of the offense yet.
That makes a lot of sense. That's almost like, as you're saying it, what's coming to my head is almost thinking about Pat Mahomes. And last year, Pat Mahomes did not look like the Pat Mahomes that we've come to know and understand. And that it's like, because Travis Kelce couldn't do the things he used to be able to do. And he had a rotating door of wide receivers there. And it kind of, that playing it safe almost becomes the must do to be an efficient offense. That's what I'm kind of hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And we can welcome Jay into the show now. Jay, we were just wrapping up our Justin Herbert talk, but I'm sure you have some takes to fire off here.
Oh man, my dogs are chowing down behind me. I had a hectic night joining in, so excuse me for that. No, I was just Chargers fan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious. So Justin Herbert's a top 32 quarterback in the NFL, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed.
All right. Keeping it simple. But now that we've gotten enough Herbert talk out of the way, I think the logical spot to go to next is running back, because there's a lot of change in this running back room. Like, we have Najee Harris coming over from the Steelers, Amari and Hampton, the draft, kind of a surprise pick to me. I'm not sure how did you feel about that, Alex? Was that a surprise pick to you, or were you kind of expecting something like that?
I was not super surprised just with the way that the board fell. I think that there was a lot of focus on defensive tackle, but a lot of those guys went like right before the Chargers came up to pick. Emeka Egbuka was gone right before they picked, and so like you knew that they kind of wanted to either build out in the trenches or they wanted to get a weapon for Justin Herbert, and I think that Hampton was the best one that was there. So it wasn't super surprising to me, but going into the night overall, it was not what I was expecting to happen.
And how do you see this running back group shake out between the two? Like, I mean, I feel like Najee Harris is definitely like a thunder runner, right? Like, he's your thunderous kind of bulldozer type runner. And Amari Hampton, I thought in his college tape had a little of that too, but probably more breakaway speed at the same time. So how do you see them kind of splitting these carries up?
Yeah, definitely. I think Najee is going to be the workhorse from week one, right? And I think like Jim Harbaugh loves Najee Harris. He tried really, really hard to get him to come to Michigan when he was the coach at Michigan. He loves Najee Harris. And so the opportunity to go and get him, and I think really you look at, right, like the reasons why they moved on from J.K. Dobbins and went in the Najee Harris direction, right? Really all has to do with durability. It has nothing to do with performance, because J.K. Dobbins was great when he was on the field, but he also missed 4 or 5 games. And Najee Harris has never missed an NFL game in his career. Now, Najee Harris has also never had a run go for longer than like 37, I think it is, yards in the NFL. And so that explosiveness that you're adding with Hampton that you mentioned is really like the number one factor there in terms of like why he's going to get a lot of carries coming into this season. And I think, right, with Najee on a 1-year deal, right, you were basically setting the stage for Hampton to take over either later in the year or next year as a second-year player and be the bell cow essentially. Because like this Chargers team, if you just think about the way that Jim Harbaugh's teams were constructed at Michigan always, right? Like they have 2 running backs that are capable of taking, 15, 20 carries a game, but they want to lean on one of them, right? Like when they had Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, they wanted to lean on one of those 2 guys. And even though they had both. And I think it's going to be a lot of the same that you see here this season. And I think at least early on, a lot of that is going to go to Najee. And then as we get later into the year, I think they'll phase Marion Hampton in a little bit more, and he'll definitely have a big role, and he'll have a big role to start with. But I think his role will increase as the year goes on for sure.
Yeah, probably as he gets more comfortable with pass protection checks and stuff
Definitely.
along those lines, like to be able to actually play any down or enough downs to feel comfortable with him out there. That makes sense. And then we look at the wide receiver room. My main, or my not main, but my first question is, Ladd McConkey's the real deal, right? Like, I mean, he looked awesome last year. I loved his Georgia tape. Are there any concerns with Ladd going forward? Does it feel like the sky's the limit?
Sky's the limit, man. Anytime you can, nick some Chargers franchise records, Chargers rookie records, I should say, as a second round pick, like you're the real deal. Like I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's going to be a phenomenal piece in this offense. Unquestioned wide receiver one. Really, really nothing else to say. He's going to be the guy for this team.
Yeah. And then I apologize for that. I wasn't sure if Jay wanted in the stream or out of the stream if he was showing his son, but what he was doing, or he wanted to have him say something. But moving on from that, Mike Williams is coming back.
Mike Williams is back.
What is Mike Williams at this point? I have not watched a lot of tape on him, frankly.
Yeah, so I think the main bet here, right, is he's one more year removed from an ACL tear, right? And the first year after an ACL tear, even when you're fully healthy, is always kind of still a redshirt year, right? Like you still don't really have the confidence in your knee to plant and move the way that you want to be able to. And now we're 2 years away from the ACL. Obviously, Williams is also a year older, right? He's hitting 30. That's the reason why the Chargers cut bait with him in the first place, is because he was getting up there and he was, getting paid too much money. But now he's back on a cheaper deal. He's another year removed from the ACL tear. And I think really what this gives you, right, is for sure, because you've seen it, right? Because Mike Williams has played with Justin Herbert before, then now you have a bona fide sideline weapon for Herbert to throw those more dangerous passes to. Like Justin Herbert loves to take a hole shot against cover two. The best guy to throw that hole shot to is going to be Mike Williams. It has been for Herbert's entire career. They didn't have a guy that could execute that play last season, and now Mike Williams is back, and at the very least, he can still do that. Whether or not he gives you any more than that is sort of the part that's up in the air, right? But as like they needed an X receiver this season, because last season they were playing guys out of position to try to fill that role after they cut Mike Williams, and it just wasn't working out properly. And so they needed a true X receiver. Bring back Mike Williams. It's a feel-good redemption tour. He gets his number back from Will Dissly. He's back in the 81. I'm excited for Mike. I love Mike Williams. Mike Williams has been on the team since I was a kid, essentially. So I love Mike Williams. I'm very excited that he's back. But he's definitely going to be. It's going to be more of a limited role than I think people are used to seeing from him in a Chargers uniform.
And then are you expecting much from Trey Harris, or is he like the Mike Williams in waiting now? Of like you got to figure some stuff out at the NFL level and a more pro offense.
Yeah, I would expect him to be sort of the Mike Williams in waiting. I think, again, sort of the same way that we were talking about with Najee Harris and Amarian Hampton. I think that Mike Williams starts at X week 1, and Trey Harris is essentially your wide receiver 4. He's the first guy that comes off the bench. But as the season progresses, and especially if Mike's, doesn't look like the same guy, I think that Trey Harris slowly takes over more and more of those reps as he builds that rapport with Herbert. And he is the guy that they drafted to be the X of the future, right? Like he's going to be that guy when Mike Williams is done, right? Where like you can throw all those sideline balls to him. You can trust him to make those contested catches. Like that's what they brought him here for. And that's what he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to do that with very much volume to start the season, because I think that they're going to have Mike Williams do that, especially now out of OTAs and minicamp and everything. The Chargers wide receiver coach has been saying that both him and Keandre Lambert-Smith, the other rookie receiver, are kind of not really in NFL shape quite yet. Still working out of the pre-draft visit season where you get to have dinner for free every night for 3 months, and so they're still kind of working out of that. So I think especially with that context, I would kind of expect it to be a little bit more of a slower build for him coming into the year.
And I missed Markin Lambert-Smith as a rookie on this graphic. I knew I was missing someone. Now that, and I love Trey Harris's tape. He was probably the most fun receiver I had. I had the best time watching his tape in this class of any receiver. That doesn't necessarily mean he's the best receiver, but he was like my kind of guy. It was like he can go up and get it. He can dunk on people, and he's just a fun watch. Now, Quentin Johnston, when he was drafted, and I mean, on our graphic here, we have him as a starting wide receiver 3, and you just You just basically confirmed that for us, despite ESPN's depth chart having him as the backup. A lot of people expected him to be like an X receiver coming out of college, but that was never really the role he played in college. What do you see his role being for the Chargers this year?
Yeah, I have always wanted Quentin Johnston to play Z. And I think this year he's finally going to play Z, because up until this point, they like last year they tried to play him at X because Mike Williams was gone. And that's sort of what I was alluding to before. And he just doesn't have the physicality from an NFL perspective to go up and make contested catches with consistency quite yet. And so really, like, even though he's 6'4", and you think that he should be able to do like that should be his role just from looking at him on the field. Really what you want to do is you want to get Quentin Johnston the ball underneath and give him yard after catch opportunities. And the best way to do that is to put him at Z and have him run some routes underneath. And the Chargers to this point haven't really leveraged that as much as I think they could. And I think that this year, with the way that the wide receiver room is built, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for him to do stuff like that puts him in better positions to succeed. And last year, even playing him what I would term out of position at X, like, he did take a step forward. He is still not the, first round caliber player that, a lot of people were expecting him to be. I think even with that step forward, he is not quite there yet, but he did take a step forward. He got a lot better last season. And I think that, in year 3, like, he's continuing to build that rapport with Herbert. He's going to be in the right position this year. I'm cautiously optimistic about what he can do, because I think that the opportunities that he will be given will make a lot more sense for what his skill set is.
Do you think Quentin Johnston's like 60, 70-yard touchdown against Michigan in the CFP just like keeps Jim Harbaugh up at night still?
I would bet so, because the coaching staff, like, this is not the coaching staff or the front office that drafted Quentin Johnston, but they seem like they are still very high on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like Harbaugh doesn't quit on guys who beat him in college, and like that's what I get stuck on with Quentin Johnston. Now, speaking of
people he beat.
What was that?
Oh, so that's all. That's the only people he beat. But
yeah, but looking at the tight ends now, how much split should we expect to see of 11 versus 12 personnel with this team? Because I do feel like, as you've alluded to with the Greg Roman offense, run heavy, that usually means more 12.
Yeah, it's going to be a healthy dose of 12, I think. I think last year they went to 11, probably a little bit more than I would have expected them to with a Greg Roman offense, just because Hayden Hurst was hurt for most of the year. And Stone Smart is not the caliber of blocker that the Chargers needed him to be in order to be functional in this offense. And so they went to a lot more 11, especially just like to get guys like McConkey and Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston on the field all at the same time, because at some point you just have to put your best 11 out there. But now that Tyler Conklin is here and Oronde Gadsden II, who's been lighting up minicamp from all reports, now that those guys are here, I think you're going to see a lot more 12. I think you're going to see Will Dissly kind of take a step back into more of a primary blocking role, which is what he was brought to LA to do when he signed as a free agent. Kind of had to step into more of a receiving role last season because of injuries. I think Conklin can take over a lot of that receiving responsibility. Obviously, Gadsden can take over a ton of that receiving responsibility. That's what they drafted him for. That's what he's done the past 3-4 years at Syracuse. So this is one of the more well-rounded units in terms of improvement this season, I think. In terms of, like, there may not be like a standout guy, but in terms of like how it fits in the offense and how it fits in the personnel groupings that they want to run, this is a much better fit of a group than last year's was.
And I mean, I'm happy to see Tyler Conklin with the quarterback who like actually is a clear starter in the NFL, because I feel like he's a guy who
top 32 guy.
Yeah, top 32 guy. I'm not sure Conklin could actually say that very much about his past. But did you watch very much of Oronde Gadsden's tape at Syracuse, Alex?
I watched a little bit. I didn't watch a ton. Most of the stuff I caught from Syracuse was live views during the season, so I haven't caught a ton. I do know that he's basically a giant wide receiver from watching the little bit that I've watched of him. But I think that the Chargers are optimistic about his development as a blocker, because any tight end that the Chargers bring in at this point, you have to be optimistic about the blocking upside. Otherwise, they're not going to play.
Okay, and I really asked that because I saw the pass catching upside in his game, and I was like, okay, there's clearly something here as a pass catcher. More of my question was about his willingness with physicality. So sometimes at tight end, I think I might tend to overvalue that, but
Sure.
it just felt like he wasn't that willing or interested in the physical aspect of the game to me, which again, that's all personal preference and perception, right? Because you can't actually tell a guy's will through the tape. But the fact that Harbaugh drafted him makes me think that I got something wrong here, because Harbaugh lives and breathes for that stuff. So that's why I was curious about that.
Probably eats a lot of chicken.
Yeah, probably. But let's move this along to the offensive line. And Alex, I mean, we can wax poetic about Rashawn Slater and Joe all you want, because I'm here for it. I love watching those guys play. I love watching those guys block. But I don't think that's the real question on most Chargers fans' minds. I think the question is much more about the interior. So what are you thinking? Well, first of all, is Zion Johnson moving to center? Did I get that right here? Or is that like a question?
It's still up in the air currently. It certainly sounds as though the Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson are going to be the two starters. It's just a matter of what position they are going to be starting at. And that part, like you sort of alluded to, is the main question, right, with this offensive line, because obviously, like, we know that tackles are great. It's one of the best tackle duos in the league. Like, Joel was the all-pro caliber last season. Rashawn Slater is a former all-pro. Like, he's at that level. Mekhi Becton is a great add in free agency that's going to, fits the Harbaugh philosophy perfectly, is exactly what they want to do on offense, is going to, just like completely clear lanes on that right side with Alt. But then you look at the other two spots, and your options are either run back the same left guard and center that you had last season that got Herbert killed in the playoff game against the Texans, or run back the same two starters at left guard and center, but have them both play positions that they haven't played in at least 5 years, and in Zion Johnson's case, ever in the NFL, and see how it goes. And so I think, for people that are not super optimistic about it, I completely understand why, because on paper, that doesn't sound very good. But I think the reliance here and what the Chargers are betting on is that the continuity will sort of like, rise the tide of all boats, so to speak, right? And bringing Becton in will help out the guy at center, and having, Slater and Alt cemented as those guys will rise the tides of those two guys at guard. And, like, as a unit, they will perform better, even if, like, there may still be one or two weak links. From a personal perspective, from my perspective, we just saw how that worked out in the playoff game, even though the right guard was Trey Pipkins and not Mekhi Becton, right? But like, it's the same thing, right? Where like, once you get into the playoffs, if you have one or two weak links, the team that you're playing against is going to exploit that, and they're going to continue to exploit that. And you have to have an answer for that I don't think the Chargers necessarily have a solid plan for yet. And so I'm interested to see how they develop that.
Yeah, you'll need an elite quarterback in that situation. What I love this offensive line. Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson. I think they're fine. I think Mekhi Becton is absolutely phenomenal, especially in the Harbaugh offense with the way he likes to maul people. I think Joe Walt, Rashawn Slater, when healthy, I don't think it's debatable. I think they're the best tackle duo in the league. And I do believe in continuity. I do believe bringing this line back with Mekhi Becton added, with Joe Walt another year older, Rashawn Slater another year older, Bradley Bozeman another year older, Zion Johnson another year older. I think this is like a top 3 offensive line in the league.
So I because I'm feeling that same way. But I have a question that comes with it, because I see 4 first-round picks in this O-line, and I'm like instantly that is like, wow, Like that is a lot of talent, just pure talent out there. What killed them against the Texans? Was it stunts?
It was sort of a combination of things. It was stunts. It was just guys losing 1v1 a lot of times. I think the protection plan was not necessarily the greatest every single time. You know,
Who
the
who calls the who calls the protection at the line? Do you know?
Um, I don't recall. They've started to give Herbert a little bit more of that responsibility, but I think Bozeman was still calling most of the protections at the end of last year, if memory serves. But I'm not 100% certain. Certainly, if Zion starts at center, I would imagine that Herbert is going to call protections this season, or that Bozeman is going to call them from guard. Um, but yeah, it was sort of a combination of things that just sort of led to a total breakdown. Basically, the Texans started sending blitzes on basically every play, and the Chargers protection plan sort of started to break down just because like it from everyone from the interior offensive line to the running backs to Herbert himself just like couldn't get the timing right on fitting those. And
The
so it
running
did
back
just sort of
comment is
like
really interesting to me. Who was the back?
yeah. It was Dobbins at that point, Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Okay.
And so, to go back to that conversation, I think like Najee is a phenomenal pass protector. That's another
Yeah.
huge reason that they brought him
Najee
in.
is a great addition. Him and Omari and Hampton. I think this offense is going to rush for like 2,200 yards.
And I really get
Sure.
the feeling like with this, and it's not to forgive the interior, but like D'Amico is so good at putting the running back on the spot to be right in pass protection. And I'd have to go back and look at the film, but like I feel like it sounds to me like there were some communication issues there with the running back and the interior of who's getting what where. And the second D'Amico sees a weak league, he's going to kill it, right? Like so, I don't know. I'm really interested in watching this O line this year because you just don't see this much talent on O line.
I don't see a weak link. Like I mean, I understand being a fan and saying something break down like that in the playoffs. As a Cowboys fan for 32 years, that recently decided to quit that train. I understand seeing a weak link in a playoff game being like this is where it's at. But I look at this offensive line and I can't say that I agree. If I'm a Charger fan looking at this offensive line, I'm saying Justin Herbert has to be who we think he is, and Najee Harris can't make mistakes.
And I guess, Alex, I have one more question for you with this offensive line and one more note on it. I'd like to, I think that the depth with Andre James and Trey Pipkins is really strong there too. And Jamari Salyer, from what I've seen, like I think all those guys could be fringe starters on certain teams in the NFL, which as depth is outstanding. But what has held Zion Johnson back? Because he was a first round pick, but I know he's never quite lived up to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has really just been the mental side of things, because physically he's a complete specimen. Like he's routinely called out by the Charger staff as one of the biggest, one of the best trainers, one of the most freak athletes on the team. It's really just been like the inability to pick up a stunt consistently and just hold up when things get complicated in the trenches, which is weird for a guy who was a computer science major at Boston College, right? Like you would expect a guy like that, and a guy who now you're talking about moving to center. Like centers always have to be the sharpest guys in the room there, right? And there's no question that Zion,
A little bit of overthinking.
is a super sharp guy. But I think like whether it's overthinking or just not trusting, his keys or whatever it is, like he's just struggled to pick up like games that defensive coordinators throw at him in the trenches. And I think that that's really been what's held him back. And so I think that's a main question that you have, right? Like if he's going to play center, if Herbert isn't calling the protections and you're having Zion set some of those, or you're having, Bradley Bozeman set some of those still, like they're going to put the center in conflict a lot more. Right. And so I think that's going to be something to watch for sure in terms of like whether or not that part is sort of started to catch up to his physical talent quite yet.
Well, that starts to track a lot more with the general fan sentiment around this O line and what you were getting at of why there's more concern with it, because one guy who is not tracking stunts consistently and not getting to his spot can blow up a great O-line. So that makes a lot more sense in my mind as you say it. But let's move on to the defense here. And frankly, I have questions with this defensive tackle room, including like left defensive end, right defensive end, because it's essentially like a 3-4 style defense, correct?
Yeah.
So like, how do you feel about these guys who you have starting in? I mean, I'm assuming it's Deshaun, or let's go back to our actual starting graphic for Agbonia, Tart, and Hand as the starters in there. Kind of, how do you feel about them, and how do you feel about the guys behind them?
Yeah, I think you look at the defensive tackle room coming into last season, right? And it's difficult, right? Because you have to look at what the perception was of Poona Ford before he had the season he had last season, right? And I think you look at that room going into last season and you could say a lot of the same things, right? But the key difference there is that, like, you bring in Poona Ford and TR Tart, you solidify the middle of the defensive line a little bit, but you still had Morgan Fox at 5 tech that led the team in pressure, in interior pressures in 2023. He led the team again in interior pressures in 2024. Morgan Fox is in Atlanta now. And Poona Ford, who just had this phenomenal season for you,
Fox is
moved
such
to
a
the other
fun
side of town.
player.
Yeah,
Such a fun, underrated player.
Yeah. And so you look at what you have now, right? And it's like, okay, like Deshaun Hand can play 3 or 5 tech. You can move him around a little bit. The staff is apparently very high on Justin Aboigbe, who is going to take over at 5 tech, right? Like if he's going to play anywhere, it's going to be 5 tech. Like they had him playing out at edge last season. And so like if he's going to play interior, it's going to be at 5 tech. Agbonia is good, but he's struggled with injuries repeatedly throughout his career. Tart was great in more of a rotational role behind Ford, but now you're asking him to presumably be the main guy. And so
And I love Tyler Tart as that rotational guy. He's an animal, but
he's a fantastic rotational guy. Yeah, exactly. And so it goes back to the volume discussion we were having earlier, right? Of like, when you increase the volume of a guy like that, do you actually get a decreased utility out of him, because the mistakes that are what makes him such a impactful rotational player also are what makes him a non-viable starting caliber player, right? And then Jamari Caldwell is a guy that I really loved coming out of Oregon. I was fortunate to be early on him because I also cover the University of Washington, and so I was watching some of Oregon's games back to get ready for the rivalry game at the end of November. And
wait. The Houston edge rusher, you mean?
Yes, famed Houston edge rusher Jamari Caldwell. Yes, exactly. But the Wisconsin game that he had at Oregon was one of the better games of defensive tackle tape I watched all cycle. And so I'm really excited to have Jamari Caldwell, but at the same time, like, defensive tackle is like the number one position where rookies struggle in their first year. Like, it takes a second for defensive tackles to get up to speed with the NFL game. And so I don't think that you can necessarily really rely on Jamari Caldwell being a starter or an impact player in year one as a third rounder. Like, that's probably going to be a guy that makes the leap next year, right? And so I do agree with you. I think that, like, if there's any weakness to point to on this entire roster, I think that the interior defensive line is one of the weaker groups on paper coming into this season, and a lot of it is just going to depend on, like, can Jesse Minter coax out the same sort of performance out of Deshaun Hand and a guy like Naquan Jones as he was able to get out of Ford and Tart last season, and continue just sort of like becoming this, career rehab facility for defensive tackles almost? Or was there something about Poona Ford, the player, that made him so great last season that the Chargers are going to miss pretty sorely this year?
Now, one thing that I want to, because you're one of the first people I've heard say defensive tackle is a spot where guys take some time, and that this is kind of a theory that I've been, or not a theory, probably overstates what I'm trying to say, but like a concept that I've been playing with it ever since like 2 years ago when the Bears took 2 defensive tackles early. I started watching every defensive tackle from that draft who was getting significant snaps, and it was like, Jalen Carter and Kobe Turner are the only guys who are actually doing anything. The rest of it seemed kind of lost, and like they're just trying to read And it was like, okay, well, you think about the college game, it's so RPO heavy now and so spacing heavy that reading makes sense, as all these guys kind of know how to do when they get to the next level. So I think that's an interesting topic to kind of explore, because 5-6 years ago, I don't really think defensive tackle was a spot that took time, but now I think it is.
Yeah, totally. And I think, like, if you think about, like, the Texas A&M defensive line is the thing that comes most easily to mind for me, because all, 3 or 4 of those guys got drafted this season, right? And if you look at the way that they play defensive line, every single one of those guys is taught to hold their guy at the line of scrimmage and then read for a run and then shed and go after the linebacker and go after the running back. There's no it's run first, read every single time, right? Because it's so RPO heavy. It's so, like, you don't want to get upfield too quickly because they might just throw it right back over your head. And so it's all just hold the guy right here, read, and then swim. And that's all it is. And that doesn't work in the NFL. You can't do that consistently in the NFL unless you are just an absolute freak of nature. And so a lot of those guys, and I think you're starting to see it at edge a little bit too, in some of these schemes, right? Like, there's a lot of these guys that just take a second to figure out, sort of a more nuanced approach to reading an offensive line and reading a backfield and figuring out whether they're supposed to, knife into the backfield and try to make a TFL, or whether or not they're supposed to be chasing after a quarterback, or what they're supposed to be doing on any given play. And that just takes reps. And, like, you don't have those reps as a rookie. And so I think like 100%, like the last 5 or 6 years, right? Like, I think we've seen that a lot more, where it's taken a second for a lot of these defensive tackles, even the really highly touted ones, to kind of like figure it out, get their feet under them, and then really make that jump into the players that we thought that could be coming out of college.
And moving on to edge rusher, Tuli Tuipulotu. I mean, he's had some nice production in the league to this point. His PFF grades have not quite matched his production to this point, and I've seen some concepts that there's expecting more of a breakout this year. How do you feel about Tuli going into this year? And do you have any idea why those PFF grades might not be quite matching what his production's been?
Yeah, I think 100% you're expecting a breakout this season. And I think, a lot of the plays that he's been in on, where Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa have both been healthy, which, to be fair, is not a super high percentage of them. But when they both have been, a lot of the plays where he comes in, he's coming in and playing 5-tech, because he's coming in as part of that NASCAR package on third downs, right? And he's not really like super huge or anything. And so I think, like, if you do that, and then there's some plays where it's like, they run a draw or something like that, then Tuli's run defense grade suffers a ton, because he's not necessarily like big or strong enough to hold up against a guard or a center, right? When he's in at 5-tech in this 3 edge rusher package, right? And then, like, a lot of his stuff to this point, at least, has kind of been more cleanup stuff, because he gets an easier matchup, right? Because he's always been across from Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa, right? And when he hasn't been, then he's been the guy that everyone focuses on, because the edge rusher across from him is, Caleb Murphy or Derek Tuzka or something like that, right? Where it's just like, we don't even have to worry about this guy, really. We're just gonna send a guy and a half at Tuli, because he's the only edge rusher anybody's ever heard of on this team. And so I think the breakout is expected for a reason, right? Which is, to your point, like, he's been productive. And I think as a rookie, he was incredibly productive. Last season was a little bit more up and down a little bit. But this season, right, like, every single time someone talks about Tuli in the Chargers organization, they're like, every article written about him is, this guy follows Khalil Mack around the entire day. He does everything that
not a bad choice.
He takes his brain 12 hours a day. They show up to the facility at the same time. They leave the facility at the same time. Like, they're doing everything down to, like, minute by minute. They're doing everything the same. And, like, he is one of those guys that's just wired to be a Jim Harbaugh player. Like, Jim Harbaugh loves Tuli. He talks about him all the time. And so I think, for all of those reasons, like, you kind of have to expect a breakout here, right? Because like, otherwise there's not really like a ton else in this edge room. Like, Bud Dupree is a nice player. They just extended him for another year. But he's also not, like, he's no longer a top 2 edge rusher on an NFL team,
Mhm.
right? He's at his best when you can bring him in as a rotational guy. Kyle Kennard is going to be best when you can bring him in as a rotational guy, as sort of more of a DPR as a rookie for sure. And so, you kind of like if you're expecting the same level of defensive play overall that I think a lot of Chargers fans are expecting because Jesse Minter is back, you kind of have to expect a Thule breakout along with that. Because if you don't get that, then the level of defensive play that you're getting overall is going to take a hit. Whether you realize that it's because specifically of Thule or not. So I think that those two things kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jay.
I have a question, and this isn't because I'm a Bills fan. Genuinely curious. Do you care that Joey Bosa's not on this team anymore?
I care in the sense that Joey Bosa has been on the team since I was 18. And so
young buck.
Yeah. And so like I love Joey Bosa. I was super excited when they drafted him, back when they did. And I think that overall, separate from being a Chargers fan and writing about the team and everything, I think that overall there is much more of a lack of guys starting and ending their career with one team that I think should get the opportunity to. And Joey wanted to keep playing, and it wasn't tenable at the cap number that the Chargers were going to have to pay him at for him to keep playing as much as he's been playing. Yeah. So
And
I'm upset in that sense, but in the sense of like, am I upset from like what the Chargers defensive outlook looks like without Joey Bosa on the team? I think like I can live with it. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. And then this is for Q. Khalil Mack in 2025, what are we thinking about him? Just specifically him. Q.
Dog.
Dog.
Khalil Mack will
dog.
always be a dog. I will always
Straight
love
dog.
Khalil Mack, and I wanted the Bears to sign him this offseason. So, like, I'm jealous that the Chargers got him. I think he's still just a demon out there, even if he doesn't quite have the same step he once did. He wins with power and he stays healthy. Like as long as you limit
What
his
more
gaps,
could you ask for?
from himself a little, like he's dog.
Yeah. No, dog.
Yeah. Now, looking at the linebackers, I was so happy to see
Q loves linebackers.
get out there. I actually know these linebackers this time. Linebackers we have found this year are like my biggest blind spots. We got to like the Colts linebackers. I was like, I don't know. But with these guys, I actually like these guys a lot. I loved seeing Diane Henley get out there last year and make some noise because I just love watching him because he looks like a caveman with like his fists rolling on the ground because his arms are so dang long. And Junior Colson, I was big on Junior Colson in the draft. According to this number, which is just PFF grade and snap count mixed together, he struggled some. But, I mean, based on the player I saw on tape at Michigan, I would expect him to become a good NFL player. But how are you feeling about these two guys?
Yeah, I love Dan Henley. Dan Henley is my favorite player on the team. He rules so hard. And like I legitimately think that like Henley, based on last season, is probably like, if not already, he is very close to being a top 10 linebacker in the league. Just because like there are not very many guys that give you the coverage versatility that Henley gives you as
So
like
unique.
a former wide receiver, right? Colson, I will give you some context. Ruptured his appendix in training camp. And then, so he missed it was a mini camp. So he missed basically his entire rookie offseason and then played like more of a backup role for a couple of games. And then I think broke his ankle and ended up on IR for most of the rest of the season. So he like hardly played. And this season, both Denzel Perryman, who you have backing him up, and linebackers coach Navarro Bowman have singled him out as like, this guy's going to have a breakout year, like 100% breakout season, like book it. Like, I don't care. He's going to have a breakout season. And, like this is the same defense he played in at Michigan, and he was phenomenal in that defense at Michigan. And so like, it's not like he doesn't know the scheme. It's purely just letting the game slow down and come to him a little bit more as he transitions to the NFL level. And, he doesn't have the live reps to back that up, but like he's presumably just been watching tape this entire year where he hasn't been able to play. And so, he should be able to pick it up relatively quickly, I would imagine, and like with a vet like Perryman, who was their best run defender last season, I would expect him to kind of uh, still have a big role, if not start right away, in front of Colson, just in those two linebacker sets to start the year, while Colson kind of like gets his feet wet a little bit more. But with a guy like that in the room that kind of can provide some of that mentorship, but also like be a productive player when, if Colson struggles, I think that this is a really, really good linebacker trio that kind of gets underrated a little bit, because obviously like there's splash players on the edge, there's splash players in the secondary. And so, the linebacker unit kind of misses some of that love for what the team did last season.
I mean, with the safeties you guys have, I would be scared to throw middle of the field against this team. Just because those linebackers are, like you said, Henley is such a strong coverage player. One of my favorite things about Junior Colson's draft tape was his instincts in coverage and his ability to feel routes behind him. It almost felt like he had eyes in the back of his head sometimes. Like, I feel really good about these guys' ability to clog up the middle of the field. Once you get to the corner room, I don't know that much about Dante Jackson at this point in his career. I know I loved Cam Hart coming out of college. There was just health issues, and Tarheeb still had a really nice year for you guys. How do you see this corner room shaking out with Benjamin St-Juste coming over as well?
Yeah, so Cam Hart is recovering from a torn labrum currently. He had surgery in January. He should be, I think he might be back now. If he's not back, he's at least working in like a limited fashion, because minicamp was kind of the timeline that he gave at OTAs. Tarheeb still got a Defensive Rookie of the Year vote as a nickel corner, so he's solid. I'm good with that. Like, he's good. Jackson, I think, is pretty much a bang-on league average starter at this point in his career. And I think that is fine, because last year the Chargers had Christian Fulton, who was basically a bang-on league average starter and had some health concerns coming into that year, missed a couple of games. And Asante Samuel Jr., he missed basically the entire year with a neck/shoulder injury that still has him unsigned, as far as I'm aware. And so what they have now, right, is I think a little bit more sustainable, because if Cam Hart, with the history of shoulder problems that he's had, or Dante Jackson, who has a little bit of an injury history as well, can't go, right? Then you have Benjamin St-Juste, who comes over from Washington, who is another former Harbaugh guy, like committed to Harbaugh at Michigan before transferring to Minnesota. And so it's another guy where, like, it's one of Harbaugh's guys, like, he's going to play in some capacity. And then Dean Leonard, who's the backup for Jackson that you have listed there, has been really, really strong in limited action that he's seen at actual corner. Like, he was really pushing those starting corners in the preseason last season, and I think that there's a lot there to work with. And so really you have a 5 deep. Jasir Taylor has starting experience too. He struggled a lot in the slot last season, but like, he's played NFL snaps before. And so really, like, you have 5-6 guys that are all like truly NFL caliber corners that can play and be functional if they need to play. And those top 3, I think, like, it makes up one of the better young rooms in the league right now, with Hart and Still especially. And then Jackson is just sort of like your steady presence on the other side as those two guys grow into their NFL careers.
And in the safety room, Derwin James, he's a hell of a safety. It comes out in the box like an animal and can give you enough in coverage. I was surprised by 2 things. One, I didn't know how good Alohi Gilman had become over the last few years, according to PFF grades at least. And 2, totally. I did not know Tony Jefferson was still in the NFL.
Well, he wasn't until last year. Tony Jefferson came out of retirement to play for the Chargers last season.
Okay.
Before that, he was in the Ravens front office. He was interning in the Ravens front office with Joe Ortiz, and then Ortiz got hired as the GM, and the safety depth was terrible. And so Ortiz coaxed him out of retirement and got him to move back home to LA, where he's from, to come out and try to play one more season. And then he ended up making the roster and climbing his way into some reps. But yeah,
last year a breakout year for Gilman?
I would say so. I think probably the year before was okay. Like the huge breakout season for him. He got an extension out of it.
Okay. I was wondering if Jefferson, like, being in the room might have been like why he took a step, but
yeah, sure. Like yeah, I mean, really the thing with Gilman is that, like, he like he will make as many mistakes as he makes splash plays, but he is almost always just around the ball. Like he is a turnover magnet somehow. And like he has no business being one. It's really sort of just confounding.
Some
But
guys
like
just have
every
it.
time he's around the ball, like a turnover happens. Like either he forces a fumble or he recovers a fumble or like he gets a tip drill interception. Like he is just always, always, always around the ball. And so he's always creating these turnover opportunities. And that's what makes him such an impact player for this defense, even if he's not necessarily as talented as Derwin James or Elijah Molden, even who was great for them last season as well. But yeah, this safety group is really, really strong now with those three. And Tony Jefferson, gave him some decent snaps last season. I think the addition of RJ Mickens helps with that depth a little bit because Gilman is a guy that has a little bit of an injury history. Obviously, Derwin has an injury history. Elijah Molden is coming off a broken leg. He's basically fully healthy at this point, but like all three of those guys, like as long as they stay healthy for all 17 games in a playoff run, you're going to have one of the better safety groups in the league. But like if those guys start to go down, like we were getting Kendall Williamson snaps in the wild card last season. And so, it's
Former
not,
Bears legend.
yeah, not the place that you want to be necessarily, but they're going to play a lot of three safety sets. They did a lot of that last season. Derwin was named an all-pro at nickel corner because they played so many three safety sets that Derwin was basically playing nickel all season. So they'll
Where was
continue to do
Still
that.
then if Derwin was in the nickel?
I mean, anymore in the NFL, man, there's two nickels.
Okay. That makes sense.
Like there's,
Yeah.
but also when Hart was injured, there was a period of time where Hart, Fulton, and Samuel were all injured, and so still did kick out to the outside for a couple of games as well. But a lot of it was just like Still would play half the game in the nickel, and Derwin would play the other half the game in the nickel. Just
and if you're in dime, I guess I get where you're coming from. There's two nickels potentially on the field, especially
right. And especially like in passing situations, like they would basically just go to dime and only have Deion Henley out there at linebacker, and then just replace Deion with Derwin James, who's playing, a dime linebacker nickel sort of hybrid thing, like only Derwin can.
Okay.
So yeah, they're still going to do a lot of that this season, I would imagine, because like those three guys are three of their best 11 players on defense. And so you want to get them all on the field. But it's a really, really strong group. I really like this safety group.
Yeah, I mean, just watching, like looking through all this and talking through it, I feel really good about the overall depth of this roster. It's just that D line and the wide receiver room that have some questions, but like I do feel like they have the coaches and the roster here to work around that. But Jay, what are you thinking overall with the roster?
So I'm sitting here looking at this roster and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a great roster this is. What a wonderful roster. Many people would call this maybe the best roster. I just don't see it with Justin Herbert. Year after year, I have to fight Justin Herbert stands, and I apologize if you're a Justin Herbert stan because he's a fine quarterback. Think about it as if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. Is probably the best way to put it. I mean, he's in that Dak Prescott range where he's good enough to be top 3 in a given week, and you have all the stats to back it up. But at the end of the day, it's always the reason why you fall short. And I look at the team this year. I look at the running back room. I look at the offensive line room. I look at the coaches, and you're good enough to go all the way. I mean, you play in a division with an absolute monster like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, a surging prowess with Sean Payton and Bo Nix, which I think Bo Nix is absolute fucking trash. But tough division either way. Tough division. Got to give them credit. They played well last year. Got to give them credit. But yeah, if I'm a Chargers fan, I sit here the same way I've been a Cowboys fan for the past 32 years. Everything is right there. The quarterback should be good enough. And for some reason or another, the quarterback's not good enough. And I know this all too well. I mean, I spent 33 years of my life as a Cowboy fan. I recently quit. I had to quit. Couldn't do it anymore. It's bad for my mental health. That's how I feel as a Chargers fan right now with Justin Herbert as my quarterback.
Alex, if there's anything on this little odds chart that we have in the bottom left that you would like, the win total, the playoffs, like where do you think there's value? Division, Super Bowl? Are you a betting man, Alex? I guess I should ask that first.
Legally, no. Betting is not legal in the state that I live in.
Okay. If you were interested in it all, where would you think there's some value in this team from the odds that you see here?
I think they're going to win a lot of games, not a lot of games, playoffs, Super Bowl, AFC
Yeah,
Championship.
I would say plus 100 on the win total on over 9.5 wins is probably where my eyes are drawn first. I think it is a tougher schedule because they're a playoff team this year. They're not coming off a year where they had the number 5 overall pick, but we just went through for the last hour, all the talent that this roster has and the coaching talent that this roster continues to have. Like, they should be able to win at least 10 games. And so I think like that makes a lot of sense to me.
That's right.
Division is tough, like plus 290 is nice odds, but at the same time, like they're in a division with the Chiefs. So what are you going to do? I do think that like if there was any year where the Chiefs were going to be a little bit weaker, it would probably be this year, right? With Travis Kelce another year older and all the questions that they have on the offensive
needs
line.
A walker.
Yeah, and
I have a question.
Yeah.
We're talking division real quick. You're about to hop off. Who has a better year this year, Bo Nix or Geno Smith?
I would probably guess Geno Smith.
There we go. I love this
guy. I'm a fan of Geno Smith. I like Geno.
Hey,
Smith.
Geno's a good quarterback. I mean, he's right there with Justin Herbert.
Well, okay. I don't know about that, but I do like Geno Smith. But yeah, I mean, like it's going to be a tougher division this year, kind of overall. I think that if there was any year for the Chiefs to not win it, it would be this year. And so, if you want to sprinkle a little bit on plus 290, I certainly would.
Talent's there, 3-1,
yeah.
3-1.
I mean,
talent's there.
I'm 100% with you, Alex. I'm the 9.5 seems like plus 100. That seems like automatic to me when I'm talking to Jim Harbaugh team. I mean, Jim Harbaugh has had one season under his belt where he didn't achieve that,
and he eats chicken now.
And he eats chicken.
Little extra protein.
Do you know the chicken story with Jim Harbaugh, Alex?
Oh, of course. How could you not?
But he eats chicken now.
It's a scary bird.
His mind. Went from a nervous bird to a hard-working bird. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
So he's adaptable.
And frankly, Alex, I'm with you too. I'd sprinkle division. I really would, because
3-1.
It's a Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim Harbaugh might win the division this year. I think the Chiefs do have some vulnerabilities. I think maybe they'll figure that out by the playoffs. Maybe they won't. But during the regular season, I think they will go through some ups and downs after a year where last year they left their heart and soul out there to win every game they could in the regular season, and it might have cost them at the end. I could see them kind of faltering down to a wild card team this year potentially. But to me, those are the two bets.
If they don't win the division, what goes wrong? Is it the
Chargers?
Yeah, is it just the fact that everything goes right for the Chiefs, or what breaks down on this team that prevents them from winning the division? Because I look at this team, and I mean 12 game, like, so I look at this team and I say it's 12 win team. So either the Chiefs win 13 or something breaks down. Which do you think it is?
I mean, I will never bet against the Chiefs winning 13 games in a season. So, there's that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, I think
Patrick Mahomes never even sniffed a conference championship in college.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, if something is going to break down on this team, I think, like there's a lot of bets on health that the Chargers are making, right? Like Najee Harris has never missed a game, but now he's a Charger. And like the Charger franchise is not necessarily known for keeping players healthy.
I've never known a Charger to miss a game.
Yeah. But like Mike Williams is liable to get hurt. One of the corners is liable to get hurt, right? Like if you lose a guy on the interior of the defensive line, like the depth falls off very quickly. Like if one of the three safeties misses a chunk of time because of injury, like there's a lot of reasons, right? Where like there's a lot of players on this team still, as much talent as they have. There's a lot of players with injury histories and with injury concerns that could hamstring them from reaching their full potential still, because at the end of the day, there's still almost 3 months before we play any games, and so there's still plenty of time for something like that to happen. And being a Chargers fan all my life, I know for sure like one of those things will happen because it's the Chargers.
Yes, sir.
And Alex, I got 2 more quick questions for you, potentially 2, maybe only one. One, does Christian Fulton going to the Chiefs worry you at all?
Not particularly. I mean, I think that like it's a better CB2 than like the sort of hodgepodge of guys that they've put next to Trent McDuffie, to this point. But ultimately, like Christian Fulton was good last year for the Chargers, but like he's not a player that scares me.
Okay, and that was for my own purposes because we're talking Chiefs after this. And second, were you wearing a Michigan shirt when I saw you stand up earlier, or did I missee that?
Yeah, I am wearing a Michigan shirt actually. Both of my parents are alums of the University of Michigan, and my grandfather taught there, so I grew up a Michigan man.
Okay, so what happened to Mozzie Smith?
Oh, don't get me started.
The Cowboys asked him to gain a bunch of weight and then lose a bunch of weight.
It was only 67 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if there was something more to it than that, or like if that, because that was my thought process too. But
okay.
Yeah, the
rewind.
Well,
okay. We know Mozzie Smith. Everybody likes to joke about Mozzie Smith. What happened to Taco Charlton? Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, see, that's a good one. I think
Super Bowl winner.
Super Bowl winner Taco Charlton. That's right. Yeah, I mean,
his name.
Former Bears legend.
I don't have a great answer for Taco Charlton, to be honest.
Okay, it's a Michigan thing. I've been telling Q for years it's a Michigan thing.
All right. Well, Jay, did you have anything else for Alex before we let him get out of here?
Not necessarily for Alex, but for all Chargers fans out there right now, you can get Omarion Hampton for Offensive Rookie of the Year at 10-1. And if you're not taking Omarion Hampton Offensive Rookie of the Year at 10-1 with this offensive rookie class, you are freaking crazy. Take Omarion Hampton 10-1 Rookie of the Year. Look at this offensive line. Look at what Jim Harbaugh likes to do. I don't care that Najee Harris is there. Omarion Hampton is a dog. You're getting him at 10-1 with how good he is at running the football. Take him.
I like
definitely good value at 10-1. I like that.
Alex, can you let everyone else know where they can find you, find your work one more time before we let you go?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go to Twitter and search up my name, Alex Katson, Katson. I also do have a website, alexkatson.com. It's just my name.com that has links to everywhere that I do stuff right now. I actually do need to update it with the wide left stuff, but those are probably the easiest places to find me because I'm in so many places at once these days that listing them all off will take me another 5 minutes. So just go to Twitter, go to my website, and then go from there.
Absolutely, and I just want to make it clear for everybody. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of this podcast. I had some family stuff going on. I'm not a Chargers hater. I like the Chargers. I just don't like Justin Herbert.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for being generous with your time tonight and jumping on with us. And we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Absolutely, you guys too.
All right,
yes, sir. Bolt down.
Okay, Jay.
I don't know if they say bolt down. I might have just made that up. All right, we're in the AFC West.
We're in the AFC West.
Some dogs over here, brother.
There are some dogs over here.
Some dogs over here. We just talked about the AFC West. Some dogs. Anytime there's a Harbaugh in the division, you're talking about some dogs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, where are we going next?
We're going to Kansas City. We're getting some barbecue.
Ain't no barbecue in Kansas City.
No?
Hey, let's piss some people off, brother.
Kansas City Chiefs. Not like in Lubbock, Texas.
You can't get barbecue in Kansas City like you can get in fucking Midland, Texas. Come on down with it. I've been saying it for years. Best
Ask Pat
barbecue.
Mahomes. Ask Pat Mahomes.
Ask him. Come down to Evie Mays and tell me what you think, Kansas City. All right. Kansas City. Does this okay? Andy Reid, legend. Where does Andy Reid stand on Mount Rushmore of coaches? Okay.
It's a good question.
Had the Eagles stretch, no Super Bowls, a lot of NFC Championship appearances. What did he get? He got to the Super Bowl once or twice. Don McNabb, Eagles, all that. Considered one of, if not the greatest offensive minds at minimum since 1990. 3 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowl appearances, or 6 Super Bowl appearances now for Andy Reid. Where does he fall in this Mount Rushmore of coaches? I mean, it's kind of like the Tom Brady argument, but I would say Andy Reid encroaches on Bill Belichick way more than current Patrick Mahomes encroaches on Tom Brady.
Okay. 4th most wins of any coach.
He will retire with most wins, I think.
Yeah.
Unless he retires early.
19th best win percentage.
That hurts him.
Let's see. 2nd most playoff wins.
Okay. Behind Belichick, I'm assuming.
Yep. And the 3rd most Super Bowls.
Which there's probably a lot of guys right there. He has 3.
And
as soon as he
the
gets a
2nd
4,
most conference championships.
Yeah, behind Belichick.
Now, it's only the 8th most championships, though, because you have people like Chuck Noll and Vince Lombardi and Curly Lambeau and George Halas in there.
There was 11 teams in the league then.
Okay, so we're going post. We're going like post.
We're going merger.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 1. Super Bowl 1 is when all stats.
I mean, I have a hard time putting him ahead of Chuck Noll, just because Noll has 4 Super Bowls, he has 3, 4-3. Like he's got to win another Super Bowl, and he passes Noll.
Oh man, he's been to 6.
It's as simple as how many Super Bowl he's been to. I guess he has been to 6 conference.
Donovan McNabb, Terrell Owens.
Yeah, but that means he's lost 3 Super Bowls. Chuck Noll never lost a Super Bowl. 4 for 4.
Bad argument. Bad argument. I think that's a bad argument.
Maybe, but
people would say the same thing. If Eli Manning lost 2 Super Bowls and you said, well, Eli went to 2 Super Bowls, we're like, well, he lost. Well, it's like, well, he was supposed to lose, but he won both of them. So who am I to say it's a bad argument? Because the argument for Eli Manning is that he beat fucking Tom Brady. I'll sit on the table. Different day, different time. We were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs right now. You have the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now, Patrick Mahomes. He is an absolute phenom. This dude doesn't fucking lose important games. I mean, he lost the Super Bowl last year, but we don't talk about that. Been to 7 straight AFC championships. Went to 5 Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. This team begins and ends with number 15, and anybody that says otherwise, is anybody even arguing that fact these days?
No, I don't think so. But I do think last year was a neutered version of Pat Mahomes.
Yeah,
it had to be because of the offensive talent around him. I think he looked more like Justin Herbert than he did Pat Mahomes last year.
He got us to a Super Bowl, so you can never compare him to Justin Herbert.
I said he looked more like Justin Herbert than Pat.
What is a quarterback looking like Justin Herbert mean whenever you take your team to a Super Bowl?
It means he was Justin Herbert who wins playoff games.
No, it means he was Pat Mahomes.
Okay. Well, so what I mean by that though is the playmaking wasn't there.
Be rude.
The off schedule wasn't there. It was much more robotic, much more in structure, and much safer. And I think you need to find ways to get Pat Mahomes to be able to play free to truly get Pat Mahomes.
Get a little wild with it.
Yeah, because he needs to have those game-breaking plays in the big games. And last year, he didn't really have a ton of those.
And still get you to the Super Bowl.
Still did. Still incredible. But, I think that you're not maximizing what he is.
Oh, yeah. You definitely want to maximize what he is. But, I mean, you can go down the list of reasons why he wasn't great last year, still get you to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The list of reasons why he wasn't great was, you look at the weapons. Like Travis Kelce lost his step.
Travis
Rashee Rice was out for
distracted by a high school girlfriend. Hey, Justin Herbert, let me tell you one thing. We may F the Chiefs, but we love Patrick Mahomes.
It's fat Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert. Okay, so, and with the O-line, I don't think that he had the time to really play outside of just get it out, get it on schedule. Because at left tackle, they had such a left tackle, left guard, however you want to put it, they had such a liability that it was like, okay, we can't afford to wait.
Okay, so this gets back to my original point whenever we started talking about status of coaches and everything. I feel like this franchise is getting pretty complacent because they have one of the greatest talents to ever grace the football field in Patrick Mahomes.
Seems possible.
Okay, you're looking at a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who's been at 5 Super Bowls, 7 straight AFC Championship games, all at home. And he is currently the 14th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And you're telling me you can't put a fucking roster around this guy?
Sorry, I was on mute.
He's not even a top 10 paid quarterback in the NFL right now.
I mean, I don't know. They paid Chris Jones. They paid Trent McDuffie. They paid Trey Smith. They paid Creed Humphrey. They paid Travis Kelce.
Defense is there.
Yeah.
You can't put a better offense around here than Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice is fine, I guess. But an old fucking wheelchair. I mean, you see people piece together offenses better than this year after year.
Shout out to Justin. Thank you for the compliment, and we appreciate the sub.
Hey, Justin Herbert. Shout out. You're a real one.
I mean, yeah, I think they spent a lot on defense, saying like, okay, we have a quarterback.
No, I'm fine with that.
Work.
I'm fine with the defense. There's better way. Like you get, I don't know. Go out and get anybody on offense. I mean, I understand the fact that it's like, oh, we have Patrick Mahomes. Let's just get a bunch of speed, and it'll be fine.
I mean, their logic here, and I said this last year, if Travis Kelce was still Travis Kelce, I actually love the way they have this set up. Because you can't defend Hollywood and Xavier Worthy deep.
And we never got
Travis
to see
Kelce
that.
and Rashee Rice working the intermediate.
Yeah,
that is extremely difficult to defend, especially once you start getting the run game going as well, where that whole wrench got thrown. It was Travis Kelce wasn't still the same Travis Kelce. They had no answer at left tackle, so they had to wipe their gap running scheme, had to go all zone running, and like that, it messed with their play concepts, the way everything worked together. They had to take a step backwards on offense to make it all work, and suddenly this doesn't all work anymore.
Well, when you say it doesn't all work anymore, I mean they made the Super Bowl in the
yeah,
but they were 3-point underdogs.
It wasn't on the strength of their offense, though. Let's put it that way.
But I'd just like to put things in perspective with this Chiefs team.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, it didn't work for them. They were 3-point underdogs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Mahomes is incredible. Like he is, and this O-line is still pretty good aside from like a glaring hole.
It's 2025, and I'm standing on the hill that Mahomes still doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. This off like Xavier Worthy can't catch a deep ball.
They don't win.
Let's
they
be
don't
real.
They don't make the playoffs last year without Mahomes.
No, they
They
don't.
walked to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Dude walks on water. He's incredible.
Yeah. All right. So looking at this offense, I mean, I don't really want to talk about Hollywood Brown. I don't want to talk about Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. I think everybody here is replaceable. Whenever you look at this offense, I like to look at the offensive line. Creed Humphrey, maybe best center in the league.
I think he's number one.
I think so too. But outside of Humphrey, what do you like about this offensive line?
Trey Smith's a really good offensive guard. I don't think he's an all-pro caliber player or anything, but I think he is a top-notch, top 10 to 15 offensive guard in the NFL, which is really strong. You're glad you have that. I think Jawan Taylor's a serviceable right tackle. I mean, he gets a lot of heat for the penalties and some stuff like that, but at the end of the day, he just has a skill set out there that is hard to find. So you can work with Jawan Taylor on your offensive line, especially when you have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith in the middle. The big question, left guard Mike Caliendo or Kingsley Suamataia, left tackle Jalen Moore, those are big questions. And I mean, Kingsley was not ready to play in the NFL last year, especially not at left tackle. You hope that kicking him inside will work better. He's a freak athlete. He's like Penny Sewell's cousin, I believe. The big guy on the line who's always offsides, that's Jawan Taylor. Takes a lot of heat for the penalties, but at the end of the day, he just has size and length and foot speed that you can't teach, and he's going to get you by. He's a fine right tackle, but those penalties need to be cut down because they can kill your offense. Josh Simmons at left tackle is going to be a big thing here. If Josh Simmons, I thought Josh Simmons was the best tackle in the draft this year. If Josh Simmons is recovered from that injury and didn't lose any athleticism, because he had a really bad, I believe it was a knee injury at Ohio State. Best offensive tackle tape in the class, though. If he comes back from that injury clean and with the same athleticism that he showed at Ohio State, Kansas City might have gotten the steal of the draft because they found a left tackle for years at that point. And suddenly their O-line looks a lot nicer because you can figure out left guard a lot easier than you can figure out left tackle. Jalen Moore, he's just a guy. To me, I mean, you can get by with Jalen Moore at left tackle. You don't want to get by with Jalen Moore at left tackle. You want Josh Simmons to take this job. And if he can, suddenly this offense starts cooking with gas again, in my opinion, because that protection cleans up a lot. Still a rookie offensive tackle, though. That's the question beyond the injury, but he will get there with time as long as the injury is clean, I believe.
Yeah, and I feel like they found a way to make it work here. Andy Reid has always been a great offensive coach, especially when it comes to helping out of his offensive line. When you have a guy like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith there as your anchors on the inside.
Losing Joe Tooney's a huge loss, though. That can't be understated. They lost an all-pro guard and really are trying to replace him with Mike Kelly.
Where did he go?
Rookie. Chicago. Oh, no. I'm excited. I
just wanted you to flex a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm very excited. But this O-line, if Josh Simmons can jump in there, I think they actually have a chance to be good. If Jalen Moore is your starter and Josh Simmons can't take that job, I start to get some questions about it. But at the end of the day, you do have two really strong guys there in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and that can make up for a lot sometimes.
Justin Herbert's making a lot of really good points right now.
We appreciate you, Justin.
Yeah, appreciate you. Yeah, so I look at this offense. Obviously, begins and ends with Patrick Mahomes. Is there anything about this offense going into next year that makes you feel better than it did last year? And if it does, where does it? Because to me, like I said at the beginning of the video, whenever I talked about Andy Reid and his legacy of coaching, I feel like this is year after year for the Chiefs. I mean, I feel like they lose talent. I don't feel like the talent they're bringing is as good. And they keep making Super Bowls. They keep winning Super Bowls. They keep winning games. But I don't know.
Jay,
You look at a team. You look at the team like the Eagles, and they just have everybody.
Jay, if your left tackle can't dictate direction, how does that impact your run game?
Quite a bit.
Last year, they were starting left tackle with 32-inch long arms. He couldn't dictate direction. He could just get in the way.
How long are his arms now?
He's in Chicago playing left guard.
Okay.
That's a big difference. They're still 32-something inches. But their left tackle now is actually a tackle, that is something to feel good about, because their run game should be instantly improved, which should have effects throughout the entire offense.
So we buy an Isaiah Pacheco stock?
In theory, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how healthy he will be again. He missed games last year. He has a really aggressive running style, and he's getting older. But, in theory, their running game will be much better.
One thing we've seen throughout the entire Mahomes era is running backs. Isaiah Pacheco hasn't been able to stay healthy. Kareem Hunt is old now.
Mm-hmm.
We look at Kareem Hunt, and he is basically on the same trajectory as Mahomes. Mahomes is still fairly young for a quarterback. Kareem Hunt is ancient for a running back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their top two options.
Yeah, and then at receiver, you only had Rashee Rice for 3 games last year. That matters. He's your best.
But is he getting suspended this year? Whatever. He had 5 penalties.
He might be. It's up in the air. He might be.
What are we doing here?
And truly, if Xavier Worthy didn't spend the whole offseason learning how to keep his feet in bounds while catching a deep ball, I don't know what the hell he's doing, because he had opportunities. He just couldn't stay in bounds.
Oh, dude, don't get me started. I took him for over 34 and a half yards, 6 different times, where he caught a 40-plus yard reception, just clearly, not even close, clearly out of bounds, toe tapping.
Mm-hmm.
He's toe tapping next to the cheerleaders, and I'm like, where do you think your toes are right now? Because they're 15 yards away from the fucking field, brother.
If he could get there, he's really dangerous. But
dude, those toe taps
get there.
Those toe taps look so good though. If they would have been a half a mile the other way, it would have been great.
And then O-line depth. I mean, I don't know. Kingsley Suamatai, you hope he's your starting guard over Mike Caliendo. Honestly, I like Hunter Norzad a lot. I like Wanya Morris more than any Chiefs fan would tell me I should. I believed in the traits of him in the draft, even if he hasn't worked out.
He'll figure it out.
I'm not sure if he will. The biggest question with him coming into the league was maturity and mentals, and that may never get there. I don't know, but the tools are there for him to become a good offensive lineman. But you want to kick over to defense?
Yeah, we can look at the defense here for a second. If I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm much more excited. Not excited. Much less worried about the defense than I am the offense, because I think for one, you have the best defense coordinator in the league, and obviously he's not going anywhere because apparently nobody wants to hire this guy, and so you just continue to have quietly one of the best defenses in the league. You have an anchor, Chris Jones. You have good pass rush.
Did Chris Jones take a step back last year?
Yeah, but I think he's just old.
But is he gonna take another step back this year, or do you think it's a slow descent?
I think it's a slow descent. I think he's still fine.
I don't think he can play as many snaps as he has in recent years. I guess let me put it that. I think he needs more of a rest.
I think if you were the Baltimore Ravens and it is January 22nd and you're playing in a division game, whether you're at home or you're in Kansas City, I think the thing you're most terrified about on the entire field after Patrick Mahomes is Chris Jones.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I agree with that. I just don't think he can play he played a lot of snaps.
He might not be a
last
full.
years.
He might not be a full year guy anymore. I mean, he
He's
might
more of
not
a
be,
rotation.
but you get to the last 5 games of the year where you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and he might be one of your most important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's still a blue chip. He's still an outstanding, just a monster. I wish the depth, or I guess I don't wish I don't need the depth. They drafted Omar Norman Lott to be his. That's spelling. That is how you spell Chris Jones. That dude was the most explosive defensive.
You're missing
tackle
a couple of letters there, but yeah, it's pretty close, similar.
Wait, what?
Said you're missing a couple of letters there, but
Where?
it's pretty similar. So Chris, you spell with a C. There's not a C in Omar Norman Lott. There's also an H in Chris Jones.
Okay.
There's not an H.
I see where you're
in
going.
Omar Norman Lott. R. There is 2 R's, so you got that one. But
There's
then you get to the I, and there is no I in Omar Norman Lott.
Okay.
So we're
Lowercase L looks like an I.
yeah, we're 4 letters in, and we only got 1 letter transferring.
Omar Norman Lott is like mini Chris Jones to me. Like that
There
is
we go.
there's a lot of similarity there. And that is your depth for Chris Jones in my mind. You get Omar Norman Lott out there and you tell him, hey, just win off the snap, get him in on passing
Go out
downs.
there. Yeah.
That could be really dangerous. I like
Well,
that
baby.
a lot.
Yes.
Oh
And
God, I love this fucking defense. I love this defense so much.
yeah, what do you like about it? Drew Tranquil?
I like Karlaftis plus Amenahu plus Aston Gelati, like plus Chris Jones, Omar Norman Lott, and then like Felix Enrique-Uzoma has never panned out into what they hoped he would be. Mike Dana is a solid player, but like I don't really care what else is there after all those guys I just mentioned. I think Aston Gelati is going to be a freaking problem in this defense. Maybe not as a rookie, but like down the road, Spags is going to find some wild ways to use this guy.
What are we doing with these blue chip players right now that Nick Bolton or Drew Tranquil aren't going to get your blue chip highlighter here?
Tranquil was close. Tranquil was very close.
You just hit linebackers? Is that all it is?
I don't think. No, I gave the blue chip to 5 linebackers so far.
5?
I'm tracking it.
There's 5 linebackers in the league better than Drew Tranquil and Nick Bolton.
I'll give it to Tranquil over Bolton, just based on what I've seen.
Okay. It's not Zach Bond. You didn't give Zach Bond a blue chip, did you?
No, I haven't even looked at the NFC East yet.
Okay.
But he'll probably get one.
No, you won't.
Yeah, I will.
Eagles are trash.
So Tranquil, like his versatility is really valuable. This defense, and that's where this is where I struggle with the blue chip sometimes. For this defense, I think Drew Tranquil is a blue chip. For any other defense, I'm not sure he is. So that's where that's where I hate gray area with it.
Okay. But Deion Bush.
What about him?
Solid player.
Former Bears legend.
Bears legend. Yeah, I just feel like you hate linebackers, and I had to give some linebackers a shout out.
I don't think there's that many true linebackers who you can plug and play on any team in the NFL.
But the Bears love linebackers.
Yeah, neither one of them are blue chips.
Oh. Do they get paid like blue chips?
Yeah.
Oh. Then why are they on the team?
That's why I hate linebackers.
There you have it, folks. Broke it down real quick, fast, in a hurry for everybody watching.
I mean, I do think this is the best linebacker room in the NFL. The 3 of them, the way they work off each other is incredible. I just don't know that any one of them are a true a guy who makes up for weaknesses elsewhere in your defense in any other defense.
Nick Bolton is an absolute game changer on this specific defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Tranquil is too. Tranquil's like ability to blend positions and not really have a position, be able to play a bunch of different roles is really valuable for this team.
Yeah, Chimichurri is really good on steak.
Shamari Connor, you're talking.
Chimichurri Chimichurri Connor, my favorite. Yeah. So what? You obviously like the defensive line. You obviously like the pass rush of this team. What do you think about this defensive back room?
Trent McDuffie's a monster. Christian Fulton
Always
is
has been.
just a guy. I mean, he can probably play decently in this man heavy scheme, but I do have questions about him as a press corner. But behind him, rookie Noah Williams. I wouldn't be shocked if Noah Williams was starting for you guys. I loved Noah Williams tape out of Cal. He was one of the best press man corners in the draft, in my opinion. And for the Chiefs to be able to get him where they did, I think was a very good value. And frankly, I can't tell you that much about Shamari Connor or the guys behind Trent McDuffie. Well, I think Jalen Watson's actually the guy who's going to be starting. Yeah, Jalen Watson's been a solid corner for them for years, and he's actually the guy who's going to be starting. ESPN doesn't have him as the starter, but when when they're in a nickel base or a nickel defense, Trent McDuffie's probably in the nickel, and then you have Jalen Watson and Christian Fulton, maybe Noah Williams starting. And I think that Spags is going to work with that. I think Spags will cook with that.
I agree. Yeah, I like this defense a lot. This defense is always good. Anytime you have Steve Spagnuolo as the defense coordinator, you're going to be fine. You added a guy like Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie. Yeah, you're going to be fine.
I mean, this defense, I think, is still going to be nasty. It's just a question of how much the offense is adding, and Pat Mahomes raises that floor so high that it's like they're going to be a good team.
Yeah, so what I'm curious about, so their win total right now is 11.5. You can get plus money on over 11.5. What prevents this team from winning 12 games? Because you're giving me plus 100 odds on winning 12 games.
Luck. They won 15-2 last year, but 8-9 against the spread. They won a lot of close games that they like.
8-9 against the spread is league average.
Yeah, history says that luck will bounce the other way eventually, and some of those one-score games will go the other way on them.
Okay, so how many one-score games has Pat Mahomes lost?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's like 11-2 in one-score games.
What, just last year?
No.
Oh, in his career?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
He doesn't lose one-score games.
I think if these weapons don't work out, like if Xavier Worthy doesn't take a step, if Rashee Rice is suspended, it's going to come down to the weapons. That's what would go wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still Pat Mahomes. You're still
you have someone
it's
Kadarius Toney just dropping touchdowns over and over.
But it's still Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, but 11.5. I mean, that's, let's see,
12-5. 12-5 is a fine record. You're talking about one of the greatest coaches of all time with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Remind you what the question was? What needs to go wrong for them to go under?
Oh, yeah.
You know what they were in 2023 when Kadarius Toney was dropping all those touchdowns? 11-5.
So you can, yeah.
Or 11-6.
I guess I phrased it the wrong way. Like, why should we not hammer over 11.5 at plus 100?
I mean, frankly, because of the weapons. Like, that's really the main
But
reason.
It's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes at fucking 12-5.
Or 11-6, like they were 2 years ago.
But Kadarius Toney is not on this team.
Yeah, you're right. You have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown instead.
I will take both of them over.
That's fair.
I think everybody in the league would take both of them over.
But if Rashee Rice gets suspended and Xavier Worthy doesn't figure out how to catch a deep ball, suddenly you're going to have
right there.
Sky Moore catching footballs.
Hey, they love Sky Moore.
Yeah, they loved Kadarius Toney too, brother.
No, they didn't. They tolerated him.
That's why they kept giving him touchdown chances, right?
Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to score touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one bet to make here. It's over 11.5. I'm just making the case against it because, like, I'm not taking minus 120 for the Chiefs to go under 11.5. I think it's possible, but like I'm not taking that bet.
I don't think it's possible.
Okay.
I think 11 is their like floor.
Right, so
Assuming
that's
Mahomes
possible.
stays healthy.
A floor is possible.
No, I'm saying their floor is 11. Like
Yeah.
they're not going.
Yeah, the floor is the
11 and a
lowest
half,
they can
11 and a
possibly
half,
go.
11 and a half. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
For some reason, I was thinking 10 and a half when we were talking.
10 and a half.
stupid.
Yeah, no, that tracks more for me. I wouldn't go 10. Like 10 and a half is a
Yeah.
hammer.
I was thinking 11. I was thinking 11 wins still get you there. I was just completely wrong.
Okay. I mean, still feel good about this team. I do think that they are vulnerable in the division this year. That doesn't mean they won't win the division, but I think that the division could be taken this year.
It's a tough division this year. We're about to get into two teams in this division that
Lord knows.
that have a lot of hope.
All right, we good on the Chiefs?
I think so. Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT.
I think so too. Let's move it on along to those Denver Broncos.
All right.
Sean Payton.
Okay. Sean Payton is Mike McCarthy. Let's just get this out of the way. Sean Payton is Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that you agree with me that Sean Payton's Mike McCarthy.
Their records are like identical. The results are like
Literally.
identical. Their playoff wins are pretty much identical. And they both
Everything-
did it with the Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yep. And
But this last season was the biggest data point of differentiation ever between Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy.
Why?
Because he did it with Bo Nix. Mike
Bo
McCarthy
Nix
never
did,
done it with
what did Bo
Nix.
Nix do that was like, oh wow?
Sean Payton went 10-7 with Bo Nix at quarterback. That's what
I don't care about the what did Bo Nix do to be like?
I'm just saying that is the biggest differentiation point in the history of Sean Payton versus Mike McCarthy.
Is this the biggest setup for failure of all time that we've seen in Denver Broncos history? We've seen a lot of setup for failures.
No, I mean, because I think this team is really solid all around.
You can't tell me Bo Nix is going to go out here and ball again.
No, I'm saying the rest of the roster can carry this team.
No, this roster
where like this is not a bigger setup. This is not a bit. No, this is a good roster.
No, this is 6-11 all day.
Okay, what sucks on this roster?
I don't like their offensive line. I don't like their quarterback.
You don't like their line.
I think their wide receivers are overrated. I think Patrick Surtain is the best cornerback in football. I think they have really, really good safety play. I don't love their running back room, and their defensive line is mediocre at best.
I think their defensive line is really complimentary, and they scheme stuff up extremely well.
I got a little ahead of myself there. Offensive line is
really
good, I guess. Top 10.
Yeah, it's a good O-line.
Top 10. There's 32 teams. I mean, they're in the top 33%.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're a dominant O-line, but they're good. Like they have two difference makers out there.
They're fine.
Yeah.
Nothing about this team inspires me, except Patrick Surtain.
I'll agree with that. I mean, but you were saying the biggest disappointment, and you got to think back to like
the biggest disappointment
was a giant disappointment. Like,
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
Why was it a disappointment?
Because they they were expecting Peyton Manning.
Well, they're also fucking over ambitious fans. I mean, we're talking about a team that at one point they thought Brock Osweiler was going to win a Super Bowl until Peyton Manning did it, and Peyton Manning had to do it with fucking no arm attached to his shoulder.
Yeah,
I mean he was slinging balls with his dick. He had no arm. That's how much of no arm that he had. He was slinging balls with his dick, and I mean you're just a terrible franchise. Like, you don't know how to draft a quarterback. Like, never in your history have you drafted a quarterback that's worth a shit. Like, I don't know. I mean, they win Super Bowls sometimes. They get lucky. I mean, you get Von Miller basically winning you a Super Bowl against Cam Newton. It happens. I mean, you luck into trading for a guy that is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in John Elway, but I mean, that was straight luck. That had nothing to do with your franchise whatsoever. That just happened to do, just had to do with the fact that the franchise that drafted him was fucking miserable. Like, there's nothing like, Denver is, they're not good.
So, are you saying you don't believe?
No, I don't fucking believe. This is a 4-13 football team.
I mean, I won't go. I think they're winning eight games. At
8
least.
games. Okay, they go 8-9 at best.
Yeah.
8-9 at best.
I'm at best. I think they win probably 10, maybe 11.
You think this best case scenario? You think this team wins 11 games?
Yeah.
In what world is this best case scenario with 11 games in this division?
A world where the defense gets a lot of turnover luck.
Okay, so Patrick Surtain gets 12 picks. Hufanga gets 6. Or Greenlaw maybe forces some fumbles.
Brandon Jones is a really good safety. Jade Barron picked number 20 overall. A hell of a cornerback, has real good ball skills. Like they have the defense firepower and the O line to keep the football on the ground. Like they could, if get lucky, into 11 wins.
This team's picking top 3 overall next year.
Wow. See, I don't see that.
Why?
Their O line, they're too good in the trenches. They're just too good in the trenches.
Their division is stacked. Okay, so everybody wants to talk about Sean Payton. He's probably the worst coach in this division.
Not a wrong take. I mean, I don't know if I agree, but I don't necessarily disagree.
Okay, just look at strictly at their division. How many division games did they win? 1? 2? I'm taking the Raiders over on both games. Chiefs fucking own this franchise since Mahomes got there. I'll take Harbaugh over him anyway. Any day of the week. That's 6 losses right there, in my opinion.
It's highly dependent on the Raiders, honestly. Because I want to believe in the Raiders. I just don't believe.
Carroll's a great coach.
I know he is.
Anybody
but like
no, it's not. They have a good roster.
We'll get there.
This team's bad. They're gonna lose six division games. They're 0-6 in the division before the fucking year even starts.
They might only win 1 or 2. I'll give you that. Like I think they're gonna have a tough time in the division. I agree.
Okay, so 2-4 in the division.
Yeah.
Where are they getting their other 7 wins from to win 9 games?
I mean, I'm not pulling up the schedule to go through it, but like
they're terrible.
They're gonna keep a lot of games.
Bo Nix is terrible. Bo Nix isn't good. He's never been good.
I agree. I don't like Bo Nix, but they made it work last year. There's a chance they can make it work again.
They got lucky. There's a difference. There is a difference between making it work and getting lucky.
Okay.
They played well enough last year. You want to go back to some of their wins last year? Did you watch these fucking Broncos games last year? They pulled some shit out of their ass that we haven't seen in decades. I'm not going to... I hate to shit on Bo Nix as just a person because, like, I have nothing against the guy, but, like, he's not fucking good. Like, they didn't win these games because of Bo Nix. They didn't fucking win. They didn't go out and fucking have a great season because of Bo Nix. They got so fucking lucky on, like, 5 of their wins. It is ridiculous. And Sean Payton's fine. He's a fine coach. He did fine in New Orleans. And I don't hate Sean Payton as a former Dallas Cowboys fan. He is Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy gets shit on like he's the worst fucking coach in the league. Fucking give that same respect to Sean Payton because they are identical people.
I'll give you this. They won their games in a very like historically good Bears team way of like we run the football.
What does that
well.
mean?
I'm
Say it.
explaining it. We run the football well, and we create a shit ton of turnovers, and our defense is nasty. Which, historically, that team bounces the other way the next year and goes slightly below 500.
4-13.
4-13. All right, let's talk the roster. And enough debate
4
over
and 13.
what's going to happen.
I'm not debating.
Yeah,
4 and
let's talk the
13.
roster.
Let's get into it.
All right, running back, RJ Harvey. I love RJ Harvey. I don't know if he should be starting right away. And they just signed J.K. Dobbins. I didn't get it in this draft pick.
Oh, I thought they signed the Browns.
Oh, wait, was it Nick Chubb? No, Nick Chubb went to the Texans. They just signed J.K. Dobbins.
Nick Chubb went to the Texans. I got them backwards. Okay.
Yeah.
I love J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a great running back.
Yeah, so they just signed
He's no
him.
Pookie.
He's no Pookie. I love RJ Harvey as a number 2. Estime had some fumbling issues last year. We'll see where he gets. I mean, I loved Estime out of the draft too. They've both RJ Harvey and Estime are running backs I like a lot. I don't know that either of them are top dogs, and J.K. Dobbins doesn't do a lot.
They have a kid. I know. I mean, there's nothing to. I mean, we could talk about this. This running back room for 17 hours. We'll just have to see when we get there. There's nothing to talk about there. Yeah. But
we got
what about this
coming out of nowhere last year? But we can move on.
What about A.T. Perry as the wide receiver 3 here at the X position?
Sean Payton brought him for a reason, brother. Sean Payton, where Sean Payton went, A.T. Perry went. Like,
hey, if you've been listening to this podcast for 4 years, that's probably the only reason why you know the name A.T. Perry.
Love A.T. Perry. Dog. Absolute dog.
You can go back to talking about running backs. I had no idea he was on this roster, and I just saw his name, and I'm like, we have to talk about it.
Nah, I mean, we're good at running backs. I love A.T. Perry. Like, Cortland Sutton, he kind of fits in the same, like, if you watched our Colts episode, we talked about Michael Pittman as like a super light version of Mike Evans, where it's like, he's never quite gotten there to be that like dominant one, but he's a good receiver.
So A.T. Perry is Mike Evans light, also Michael Pittman light?
No, I was talking Cortland Sutton, but A.T. Perry is Mike Evans.
Okay, I love that. Okay, what about Troy Franklin? I had some hope for him last year.
Yeah, man, he didn't get to see the field like at all last year. And there were questions.
Because Bo Nix couldn't get him the ball, or
I think he was really raw coming out of Oregon, honestly, with his route tree. And I think he ran into some injuries along the way as well. You'll have to fact check me on that, but
Bo Nix has never thrown to anybody from Oregon before, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Marvin Mims, a guy I liked a lot coming out of Oklahoma. I think that he started to find his stride last year in his second year. So I do think he's a name to watch if the quarterback can give him the football. And then Pat Bryant was a surprising pick to me. Frankly, I didn't think. I mean, I wasn't surprised he went to the Broncos. When I was talking Pat Bryant during the draft, I said this guy has like the Saints make a lot of, or not the Saints, the Broncos make a lot of sense for Pat Bryant. I feel like Sean Payton's offense would use a player like this well. I didn't expect them to take him in the 3rd round though. I thought he was a day 3 pick because there's questions about his ability to actually separate from man coverage, and his speed just isn't quite there. I'm interested to see what they have in mind for him, though, because he does fit in what Sean Payton likes to do.
Hell yeah. I don't really have a lot to say about this team. I like Evan Ingram at tight end. I think he's fine. I like you can go down there, offensive line, Balls, Powers, Wattenberg, Miners. I think Miners is great. McGlinchey. I think they have good depth at the O-line. Nothing really stands out to me. I think this is
this Alex Palczewski dude played snaps for him last year and was actually good, like shockingly good for like someone who no one had ever really heard of out of Illinois.
Are you talking about Brock Hoffman?
No, he's the Denver version of Brock Hoffman. So that improves their depth to me. Outside of that, I don't love their depth. Alex Forsyth stepped in and played some snaps with them last year. I was a big fan of Forsyth coming out of Oregon, but he didn't really show much in the NFL when he had his chance. He graded out fine on PFF, but like, I don't know. I was not very inspired by the tape I watched. Obviously, I liked him in the draft because when I saw he was starting, I was like, I got to go watch some Alex Forsythe tape right now.
Gotta do
I
it.
was kind of disappointed. But as a number 2 center, you're fine as long as Wattenberg stays in there. And Wattenberg is, to me, I don't know. He's a guy. He's fine. But when you got him between Quinn Miners and Ben Powers and Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, like, he'll be okay.
Yep. All right, let's get on this defense before we project them to go 4-13.
Zach Allen is one of the most underrated players in the NFL.
Yep. So is okay. I mean, I know a lot of people say that Pat Surtain is the best corner in the league. Can you be considered the best corner in the league while also simultaneously being like underrated? Because I still don't feel like Pat Surtain gets the credit he deserves.
I agree. It's just everyone just kind of is like, oh yeah, he's great, and then like doesn't talk about him at all. He's so smooth.
He's not great. He's like fucking generational.
Yeah, he's the best corner in the NFL right now, I think.
Like he is like Ravis Island type good.
Yeah. He's so smooth, so technically sound, and like it's no issues in and out of breaks. Like I'm a huge Pat Surtain fan.
Yeah, no, he's fucking fantastic.
Part of it, I think, is part of his underratedness. I think is that no one ever pushes back on it, so it's like there's no discussion to be had. So you just never hear anyone talk about him.
Yeah, that's the thing about DB. And I just like, I mean, you play for such an irrelevant franchise on top of that like that hurts too. But no, he's fucking incredible. But yeah, I know we're gonna get to it. I just had to get it up the top. Just make sure people know.
100%. I mean, let's just stick at corner. I mean, Riley Moss finally got some play time for them last year. Looked okay, but like getting Jahdae Barron in the draft is a big get for them. I think that he is a guy who's going to play really well across from Surtain. And like, I mean, we had him in the nickel on the ESPN depth chart. According to PFF, he's going to be playing outside. We'll see where he lines up. I haven't stayed apprised to the Broncos minicamp stuff, but like I think Barron with Surtain has a chance to be a really, really nice duo. And their depth behind him seems fine to me, like right there with anyone else in the league, really. Yeah. And at safety, they got some nice players here. Hufanga needs to stay healthy.
I was going to say, if Hufanga stays healthy, he's an absolute dog. Brandon Jones is fine. You have him as a blue chip. I would have him in slightly below.
Frankly, I don't. I mean, to be completely honest, I didn't get the chance to watch a ton of Brandon Jones tape. I just had to trust the PFF grade with this one. His PFF grade is incredible. So I was like, and it's all coverage grade based. So it's like, I was like, okay, I'm just trusting PFF here.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this defense, and if I'm any other team in this division, they're good. You just avoid Pat Surtain. You don't run it at Dre Greenlaw.
Just avoid Pat Surtain, though. Like, I mean, they don't have any holes. That's what makes their defense good. They are just
dude. I will hold them up all over the place.
Yeah,
I will run opposite of Dre Greenlaw. I will hold them. This defense is gonna give up points. I guarantee it. The Chargers are going to score. Like, you're telling me the Chargers offensive line versus this defensive line, and I'm like, I will take the Chargers with Omarion Hampton and fucking the kid from Alabama. I don't even remember his name. Played for the Steelers for like 5 years.
Najee Harris.
No, I'll take Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton and that offensive line for the Chargers all day against this. I will obviously take the Chiefs. And then you're giving me the best running back and the best rookie running back in the class and Pete Carroll versus this team. We're torching this team. Everybody in this division is torching this team. And this is the strength of the team is this defense. And they're going to get fucking torched by everybody in the division.
I like this defense. I like it a lot.
I guarantee you this defense gets torched by everybody in the division.
I don't know. I don't see it.
No, it's gonna happen.
Okay.
I promise you.
Okay.
Like I don't know what else I need to say. I mean, Pete Carroll might put up 460 on this defense as a Raiders head coach. Biggest clown show podcast I've ever had the misfortune of watching. Oh, love that, Mr. Rattlesnake. Rattlesnake Master. Oh, man. Hey, do you know anything about the JCs down in Sweetwater, Texas? The biggest rattlesnake roundup in the United States, where they collect about 3,500 pounds of rattlesnakes a year. Come check it out if you're ever curious. I'll be around there. But no, they're just an inept team in an overpowered division.
I think they're a very well-coached team that might exceed their talent with their play. But like this defense, to me, they are sound across the board. And they're a very well-coached unit, very disciplined, and very complimentary. I like so much about this defense, Jay.
I mean, they might play well outside the division. Every coach in this division is gonna mollywop this defense.
I just don't see it that way.
When do they play the Raiders?
I don't know.
I gotta look this up. I'm gonna look up the Raiders schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I see a strong defensive line, a strong linebacker unit, a strong secondary. I don't see what there is to even debate here, if I'm being honest.
Preseason, Raiders, Chargers, Commanders, Bears, Colts, Titans, Chiefs, Jaguars, Broncos. November 6th is the first time we see Raiders, Broncos, and it's in Denver at 7:15 p.m. I'm guessing this is a night game, or not. Obviously a night game. I'm guessing this is a Sunday night game and not a Thursday night game. I'm betting the Raiders go off for about 400 yards of offense that game.
All right, go for it.
Sunday night game versus the Broncos, November 6th, 7:15. That's going to be when we really know this Broncos team is a fraud. It's the first time they meet Pete Carroll on Sunday Night Football. It's about 8-9 weeks into the season.
Yeah. I don't know. I believe in this defense. I don't know if I believe in the offense. I believe in the defense.
I believe that the defense is going to get absolute mollywopped by Pete Carroll.
All right, let's move on then.
All right. Speaking of Pete Carroll, I like this team a lot. I like this team a lot.
I think Pete Carroll's going to get more out of this team than they have. I hate this defense. I
love this defense.
Oh, my God. They have nothing at defensive back.
They're the best defense in this division.
Ugh.
Max Crosby?
Yeah, Max Crosby's awesome.
Defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I love Max Crosby.
Okay. Belt around him. Fucking get it done.
With what? Like, I mean, you can't build the defense on two players. Like, they need so much at quarterback. It's scary.
Tyree Wilson, dog. Ashton Genty, dog. Raheem Mostert, dog.
Yeah, I mean, I want to like this team more than I do. I like their own line quite a bit. I think, you know, can we do this in order?
They're all dogs, I guarantee it.
Let's
do it in order.
Let's just start with Geno.
Oh, dude, Geno, the most underrated quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah, dude, Geno's a monster. He carried the Seahawks last year.
Geno is a legitimate top 16 quarterback in this league.
But can he stay healthy?
I don't know.
Because when he's not healthy, he's not as good. He's not that
Who's
good.
their backup?
Aiden O'Connell. Purdue legend.
Okay. Geno Smith is a legit top 15 quarterback in this league.
Oh, 100%.
I don't mean that disparagingly. Because a lot of people, when I say top 15, people act like that's an insult. It's not an insult. top 15 means your top 10, which means your top 7. I think 7 to 15 are interchangeable for basically any way you want to look at it.
Yeah, I agree.
So if I say you're top 15, in most people's argument, that means you're top 7. And I don't beat around the bush. I just spit straight facts on this podcast. And he is a top 15 quarterback. And I don't know if that elevates you to Super Bowl status or not. I do think you have one of the better coaches in the league with Pete Carroll. I do think it's weird hiring a 74-year-old head coach with this type of roster.
It is. It
like,
feels like weird. Like this team
what
needs
are
a
we
rebuild,
doing?
and they're trying to they're trying to
what are we
reshuffle
doing here?
Yeah, which
They're gonna
I
get
think
a
they're
boost.
going to exceed expectations, and like they're going to be like a really feisty
they're going to win 9
football team.
games. They're going to win 9 games.
I just don't know what the end goal is, though. Like, where's that going to get you in the grand scheme?
I think they're going to win 9 games and be really proud of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know whether or not 9 games makes the playoffs for them or not, but I think they win 9 games. I think that's exactly what this team does. And they look at the season and they say, oh, Geno Smith, he's top 15 in all these stats. Oh, Ashton Genty ran for 1,700 yards and 11 touchdowns. Oh, Max Crosby had 14 sacks on the season. They're gonna look at all these things and be like, oh, we won 9 games. We're really close. They're not really close. They had a really good coach, and their star players were star players. And I think that's gonna be the end result of this season.
See, I think Geno ends up being high risk here because I think he's going to have to carry a lot on this offense, which means he's going to take hits.
What is he going to carry? Brock Bowers is fucking electric. I mean, Josh Beck. I mean, or is his name Josh Beck? Jack Betch, this kid out of TCU, trash. Absolute garbage. I mean, RIP in peace his brother, but like this kid is absolute garbage. Jacoby Myers, fantastic.
Nah, he's fine.
He's fantastic.
He's okay.
Okay.
He's a solid player. He's not a wide receiver one.
You tried arguing earlier that the Chargers were good.
Chargers are good.
Okay. Las Vegas Raiders are winning 9 games.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the running back room.
Okay.
Ashton Genty, monster. I mean, there's not a lot to really even say there. Raheem Mostert behind him, the ageless wonder. I mean, I don't know how much he's even going to see the field. As long as Genty stays healthy, I don't know why he would come off.
He's getting every carry if he's healthy.
Yeah. And then at wide receiver, I mean, they're missing a lot. Jacoby Myers is a fine player. He's not a wide receiver one. They drafted Tommy Millott, who's a quarterback, and evidently he's switching to wide receiver, according to the ESPN depth chart, at least. I'm very confused by that, frankly. 3 of their top 6 receivers are rookies. Jack Betch, I like Jack Betch. He's fine. And Trey Tucker is a solid player, but like they're just missing difference makers here. They got Brock Bowers at tight end, though. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. It's a dangerous duo at tight end. I just don't know.
Back-to-back years.
The rest of the weapons, like, it really – it's the Ashton GT Brock Bowers show here. Like, that is the offense.
Tell me a better tight end duo than Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer in the league right now.
Cole Kmet, Colson Loveland.
Oh, get out of here.
It's not better. You're right. Maybe in 5 years.
Yeah, but do you want those 2 tight ends in 5 years? Come on now.
Colson Loveland? Fuck yeah, I do.
No, I'm saying, do you want to be like, oh, that's our tight end duo? Because if Colson Loveland is as good as he's supposed to be in 5 years, you don't want to know who the other tight end is.
Yeah, you're right. I just don't know how good Michael Mayer actually is. We'll see. We'll see this year. He should get more opportunity. Yeah, I was never really a big believer. I think 2nd round pick, actually.
No, he went 1st round.
I'm pretty sure he fell to the 2nd.
Dude, I will probably lose this bet, but I will bet you that he went 1st round.
All right.
I'll look it up right now.
Okay. Moving on to the O-line.
I'm losing this bet, but I'm taking it.
Moving on to the O-line. Colton Miller's a really good left tackle, so you got that. Dylan Parham started to show some bright spots last year to really kind of – he might be becoming a pretty quality football player for you. JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson center. I love JPJ. I won the bet.
35.
Yep. JPJ, I think he's going to be a really good center in this league. Just keep him at center. Alex Kappa, he's an NFL caliber football player. DJ Glaze is a question mark, though. I think DJ
Glaze sounds like me on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm hyping up Patrick Mahomes.
What's your name? DJ Glaze.
if there's ever a tech player that ever needs a little bit of hype, I'm DJ Glaze on a Saturday night.
Well, a tech player who needs a little hype is Tyree Wilson.
Oh, I will DJ Glaze Tyree Wilson. Dog.
That's all you got.
What else do you need?
Tyree Wilson needs. I wish they would just play him at 3 tech. I think when he was coming out of the draft, I thought 3 tech was his future. You need to put on some weight for it, but like I thought that was the spot where he could shine. He hasn't really played there much. He has some, but like I don't know. He's not working out at the edge. Max Crosby's a monster in edge though. Christian Wilkins missed a lot of time last year with an injury. 2 years ago, he was still a dominant football player. I really struggled whether I should make him a blue chip in this or not. I ended up making him a blue chip because I think he can still play at that level that he showed 2 years ago. Adam Butler and Malcolm Kuntz, good enough football players. I think Kuntz actually has some room to grow and continue to get better as long as he can stay healthy. Missed a ton of time last year. My worry here comes more what's behind them, like Charles Snowden, like Ifotu, Jonah Laulu. I'm not really a believer in them. I do like JJ Pegues a lot. He's very raw, though. I do trust in Pete Carroll's ability to get something out of him, though, and find a spot where he can really make an impact on the team. But I do question this D-line depth. At linebacker, Devin White hasn't been the same player for a few years now as he was in his early years down in Tampa. Landon Roberts, solid linebacker. Tommy Eichenberg, I think he's going to be a lot better than he was last year. I think that he's going to adjust to the speed of the game better, and really, he's just a good football player. That's what I saw in his tape 2 years ago. So I do think that he will make a step here. Corner is really where I question this roster. Jacorian Bennett, I mean, he's an okay starter, but like, I don't know. I want something more. Eric Stokes got burned a ton in Green Bay last year. Darnay Holmes, like, Darian Porter was one of the most raw corners in the draft. Absolutely physical specimen, like a 10 RAS score, just incredible athlete. But like 5 years at Iowa State, and he never started until his 5th year. I don't. He was a converted receiver, but I still don't get. Like, I have questions. Ultimately, I know this is Pete Carroll. I know Pete Carroll finds a way to get a lot out of cornerbacks who no one believed in. So that's why I have a hard time betting against it. But like, I also just look at the talents and have a hard time betting on it. And it's safety. I love the Jeremy Chin edition. I can't say I know much about Isaiah Polamau and like the guys behind them. This defensive back room really, I'm struggling with it because I believe in Pete Carroll, but I also just think they lack the requisite NFL talent to compete.
Yeah, they're going to win 9 games.
All right, 9 games. So we know what Jay's betting on the total. Over 7.5 plus 140. Playoffs plus 310?
Absolutely not.
9 games.
Yeah, 9 games ain't going to get you to the playoffs of the AFC.
Yeah, but no 10. 9.
Yeah, no, there ain't no. I'm getting plus 140 just to win 8 games, and you think I'm going to bet all the way up to 10?
I mean, I'm with you. I'd take the over here plus 140, but like I'm still skeptical of it just because this defensive back room.
They're going to win games they shouldn't win. Every team
does. Yeah.
Every team in the league should win 5 games. What are you going to do after those 5 games? And they're going to win those games, and the Broncos are going to lose them.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, if you're not fading the Broncos, I mean, it's free money.
All right. You want to wrap it up, Jay?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up here. What do we got next week?
NFC North.
NFC. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you all for joining this week. We had the GOAT,
Alex Katson.
talking about the Chargers with us for a second and talked about some AFC West football. It was a great time. Got to talk about the Chiefs, greatest quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't even think that's arguable. And yeah, it was a good time and a great time. Probably not a really strong contender right now if we don't sleep on them, except if we maybe include the Raiders. But are they
7.5? I feel like they got a Pete Carroll bump in
a
Vegas.
little
That's
too strong?
Too.
Little too strong. I think Titans maybe still leading the clubhouse.
Yeah, for me, I think so.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. If you're a Broncos fan, I severely apologize. You're just not good. So we will see y'all next week talking NFC North. And go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
And when you knock us down, on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.